at 5:41. Ms. Kelly, would you please call the roll and establish your quorum?
Mr. Alexander,
Here.
Ms. Medina, Ms. Patterson,
Here. Aye.
Ms. Grant,
Here.
Mr. Valterez, Mr. Wagner,
Here.
and Mrs. Kelly, present.
Can I get a motion to retire to executive session for the purpose of litigation when an action against, affecting, or on behalf of a particular public body has been filed and is pending before a court or administrative tribunal, or when the public body finds that an action is probable or imminent, in which case the basis for the finding shall be recorded and entered into the minutes of the closed meeting 5 ILCS 120/2C11. The appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, specific individuals who serve as independent contractors in a park, recreational, or educational setting, or specific volunteers of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee, a specific individual who served as an independent contractor in a park, recreational, or educational setting, or a volunteer of a public body, or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity. However, a meeting to consider an increase in compensation to a specific employee, a public body that is subject to the Local Government Wage Increase Transparency Act, may not be closed and shall be open to the public and posted and held in accordance with this Act 5 ILCS 122C1. Collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employee or their representatives, or deliberation concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees. D, the purchase or lease of real estate property for the use of the public body, including meetings held for the purpose of discussing whether a particular parcel should be acquired. 5 ILCS 122C5.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Mr. Alexander,
Aye.
Mrs. Kelly, aye. Ms. Medina,
Aye.
Ms. Patterson,
Aye.
Ms. Grant,
Aye.
Mr. Valterez,
Here.
Mr. Wagner.
Aye.
We are entering closed session at 5:45. Call the roll.
Mr. Alexander.
Absent.
Ms. Kelly. Ms. Medina. Ms. Patterson.
Here.
Ms. Grant.
Aye.
Mr. Valtier's aye. Mr. Wagner. Aye. Motion carried.
May we please stand for Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance Sam, would you please read the vision statement?
Their expectations of excellence and by providing equitable educational opportunities to empower each student, our graduates are prepared for college, careers, and to serve as contributing members of a dynamic global society.
Dr. Henderson?
Good evening, Board of Education, Board President Patterson, Vice President Kelly, Secretary Mr. Valtier's, community and administrators. Tonight, we would like to recognize some of our brilliant scholars, and we'll get started just now. Where am I? All right. Thank you, ma'am. Okay. Tonight, we would like to recognize some of our scholars for the School Citizen of the Year Award, or Scotty Award. Now, this award is celebrated by West 40. The Scotty program recognizes students chosen by their school as good school citizens and models for others to emulate. Selected students will be recognized and celebrated at an award ceremony with other West 40 students on March 22nd, 2023. So this evening, we would like to recognize our scholars before they are recognized. So please, Ms. Larak Mahan from West, Ms. Sabrina Jackson from West. Are you here?
Yes, I think we should.
From East, Samira Flores. From East, Evelyn Ray Garcia. From PMSA, J-Lo Singleton. And also from PMSA, Milo Giddings. Come on down, Mr. Giddings.
You need to step up.
All right, everybody. Can you look this way? What, on count of three. 1, 2, 3.
All right. Mr. Waddy Sonny, will you please come forward? This evening, Mr. John Watson, will you please come forward? I'm going to give Dr. Watson the pleasure of sharing our next individuals that we would like to recognize this evening. Please come forward.
Good evening, Board. On behalf of the PNSA Monty Python robotics team, I've done this before. Thank you. On behalf of PNSA and the Python robotics team, they did an excellent job at our annual competition over the weekend. They did an outstanding job. Oh, thank you. Perhaps not. They did an outstanding job competing against international and local teams. I can't tell you how impressed I am with the robotics team. They truly did an outstanding job at the competition. And they would like to share some of the great things that they're doing in robotics and how it connects to things like our community, how we connect STEM to the work that we're doing. So I would like to invite Jaime. Jaime is our team captain. Jaime? I mean, he is truly the best advocate, and obviously he can speak to this far better than I can.
Hello, my name is Jaime Sandoval, and I am the team captain for the Monty Python's 2151 robotics team. So what we really do is try to express the motion of STEM to the community and not just focus on this competition, which it's a big piece of what we do, but it's not the main focus, you know? So all you see there has been touched by the hands of students from West as well. We've been collaborating this year a lot with West, and it's an amazing robot that has shown dedication, a lot of work that has been put in, a lot of long hours, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, as you can say. It's a very intricate piece of art, one could say, that it's not touched by adults. It's mostly touched by younger kids, which don't really know what they're going to do later in life, but this is kind of what leads them into a path of wanting to express STEM or many other different opportunities of work. We have different departments. We have a build department, which is all the metal that you see there, all the fabrication that you see there. A lot of those pieces were custom made by us. And it takes a lot of creativity and skill to get to this point. We also have an electronics department, which works a lot with our electrical, our board. They also have to communicate with each other. And we also have a programming department, which works with code. Code is very nice. I mean, we are starting to have lots of classes with code, right? So code, CSA, CSP, and that's helped us actually with a lot of our students and members wanting to join the robotics team because we say, oh, we have programming. And they're like, oh, we really want to join this and such like that. Community-wise, we've done events like, we want to do an event, we previously have also done events like STEM Fest, which is a combination of all the engineering, art clubs to do one big event in the year, and it's a very fun and exciting event. We've also done GLOW, which is girls learning how to weld with Trident. Our partnership with Trident has been really nice, and in connecting with younger middle school kids that might not have the ability to learn these things in their schools or maybe at home, and this kind of lets them learn a little bit more of that. And yeah, I mean, our team is really just a really close family. Oh, and I can choose the team. So we have Anaya here. She is my co-captain and the captain of programming.
Don't really have anything prepared, but I'm the captain of programming and then the co-captain of the team. So my job is pretty much just to make that move, and I work really closely with build and electronics to see the specs and what I actually have to do.
And we also have Edward, which is another member of robotics. We have Jimena, which is another member of robotics. And we have Daniel, Cece, and Shandi in the back as well. And we have in the background over there, we have Walter, which is our beloved mentor, and Miss Pfeiffer as well. And we also have one of our new members from West, Natalie. She's also joining us today. And along with a bunch of other members that we don't have today, we have a total of 42 members in combination. So it's a big club, a lot of collaboration, a lot of great minds together. That one thing that you see there is a combination of many minds put together. And yeah, it's a very team building effort where all of us need to think clearly, communicate, and bring each other together to make one big thing.
Come on, let's give it up. Give it up to our scholars. I'm going to ask the rest of you to please come up and take a picture with us. Please come up and take a picture.
Would we like to have the project in the picture? All right, everybody, right this way on 3. 1, 2, 3. Perfect, thank you.
Thank you all so very much.
The game animation for robot.
Let's give it up. Let's give it up for our scholars. Give it up. And before I go back to my seat, I would like to introduce our new Director of Public and Community Relations. Will you please come forward and say a few words, please? Ms. Vanderbrook. Please welcome Ms. Vanderbrook to our organization.
Good evening, board. I haven't had a chance to properly introduce myself to you personally. It's nice to be here. I've been in a couple of different school districts doing school communications, and I'm really excited to be a part of the Proviso team. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right, now we'll move quickly to our presentations at this time. We'll get started with Dr. Williams. And each of you should have a copy of the PowerPoint presentation in your packet.
Good evening, Board President Patterson, Vice President Kelly, Secretary Valterez, board members, Dr. Henderson. I'm Sharon Williams, the Deputy Superintendent of Schools, with a few updates for you this evening and approximately or exactly 7 action items for your consideration. So this evening, we want to give you a quick data snapshot. The first slide just shows our current enrollment, and then we want to go into the STAR, reading, and math winter results. Students finished up the STAR in February, so this is a report of how our students are doing on that one assessment. So as you can see, the enrollment numbers for March have been pretty steady throughout the year and haven't fluctuated very much. This, of course, is impacted by ins and outs and some mobility in our schools, but for the most part, we've maintained this enrollment count for the entire year. So just a recap for STAR. We've presented to you several times on Renaissance STAR. It's a computer adaptive assessment. It's a norm reference test for us to see how our students are doing as it relates to other students in their same grade level, same ages across the country. We use this to measure student comprehension and learning standards. We also use this to inform instruction, and it gives us a predictive performance on the PSAT and the SAT. We'll talk a little bit more about percentile rank and the student growth percentages throughout this presentation. The students have taken, scholars have taken the STAR assessment 2 times this year. It's given a total of 3 times. The end of the year window is in the spring, so in May of this year. So one thing we want to always present to you is the average participation for STAR math and reading. We want to keep our participation rate high so that we can have information to use to better help our students in the classroom. So as you can see, we keep track of the participation rate for each administration. We work with school leaders throughout the administration window to make sure that all of our students are testing. You can see that we had a little bit of a dip at East regarding the fall to winter average participation. Our goal is always at least 95% of our students being assessed on each of our assessments. Proviso West did make some gains in terms of the average participation, and PMSA is nearing 100% participation, so congratulations to the PMSA team. We're continuing to work with our scholars and our school leaders to make sure that our participation rates are high so that we have data to use. The first couple of slides are going to harken back to the fall assessment. The yellow line that you see with 65% is the state benchmark. So according to the ISB benchmark for reading and math, STAR will measure how our students are doing for the average percentile rank. We want our students to reach at least the 65th percentile rank in order to be on benchmark. What you'll see in the fall of the year is that many of our 10th grade students are meeting or exceeding the benchmark for math according to STAR. We do have lots of growth left to go with our 9th, 10th, and 11th graders at Proviso East and West. Our PMSA scholars are just about at that 65 percentile rank on the fall STAR math. The next slide is STAR reading for the fall. And again, this was given back at the beginning of the year. We do have some comparative slides in just a moment, so you can see how our scholars are doing from the first administration, the fall administration, to the winter administration. Many of our students are still not meeting our expectations around reading. We have a strong focus in this area, and the curriculum audit, as you can you'll hear more about in next actions and continuous improvement, is one way we're going to strengthen our Tier 1 instruction for students in order for them to make benchmark. The next few slides are just our winter STAR performance. There has been some growth for some students. However, it is still quite a big gap between how our students are performing currently and the state benchmark in math. And then the gap is wider for our students in reading across the board, and that includes students at PMSA. So the next few slides, we're going to take it school by school and look at the math growth from the fall administration to the winter administration on the STAR assessment. So this is Proviso East. You'll see that performance is very much flat between the fall and the winter administration of the STAR assessment, with at least a 40% gap between where our students are performing and the state benchmark. Similarly, for reading at East, we have very flat performance in terms of the national percentile rank for our students, almost a 50% gap between where our students are currently performing and the state benchmark. At Proviso West, very much the same for math. The growth there is pretty much flat. We did have some improvement in the 10th grade, but still a far reach to the state benchmark. And again, in reading across the board is by far our lowest area and most need for improvement for our scholars. At PMSA, many of our students are reaching that state benchmark. You'll notice that in the 10th grade, our 10th graders are very strong and are predicted to meet the state benchmark in math. They're nearing that level in the 9th grade, and our 11th graders on the winter assessment surpass or is 1 point away from the state benchmark. In reading, you'll notice still that there is a gap in reading for scholars at PMSA to the tune of about 30 points away from the state benchmark. So now I want to switch to another measure that we look at for the Renaissance STAR reading and math. We look at student growth percentiles. So we want students to make at least 50 on their SPG from fall to winter. 50 is 1 year's worth of academic growth. What we can tell by where our students are currently performing, they will need to make more than 1 academic year growth. We would hope, and hope is not a strategy, but we're reaching for them to have a higher student growth than 50, because we know that they are more than 1 year behind in reading and math. What you'll notice in the next couple of slides is that we've taken the median score for each school instead of the mean to eliminate the effect of outliers, very low student growth, very high student growth, and use the median score. So this graph represents the math student growth percentile from fall to winter. Well, you'll notice that many of our students in the 9th and 10th grade are at East and West are approaching that 50 student growth percentile, which means they're making at least a year's worth of growth between the fall administration and the winter administration. All of our PMSA scholars are meeting that 50, at least 1 year's worth of growth on math. You notice that our 11th graders are scoring well below our 9th and 10th graders in terms of their growth in math. For reading, a little lower, but we're still approaching the 50 student growth percentile for students at East and West. Scholars at PMSA are scoring at or above the expected growth from the fall to winter in reading. The next couple of slides, we want to show you the predictive nature of the STAR assessment for math and reading. And the black bar at 33.72% is the 2023 math proficiency target set by ISB. So this number goes up a little bit every year. So we're always reaching for a higher goal according to ISB for the summative designation in terms of proficiency. So based on the the winter assessment for STAR and math, we can predict that 4.8 of our students at Proviso East will meet the state benchmark, 5.26 at West, and we are reaching the goal for our scholars at PMSA at 44.26% predicted to exceed the benchmark for math on the PSAT and SAT. The next slide shows the predictive state proficiency for ELA according to the Winter Star. And as you'll notice, and you saw in the previous slides, that ELA is a subject that is weaker for us, that we have much more room for improvement. Our scholars at East, only 1.49 at this point in time, are projected to make the 37.03 proficiency target on the PSAT and SAT in April. 2.22% at Proviso West and 14.57 at PMSA. So next, actions and continuous improvement. We've spoken several times about our curricular resources update. This is one of the key strategies that we will employ to improve our instruction across the board. So the Tier 1 curriculum is curriculum for all students. What we're looking at in the curriculum audit that's being conducted now, and that you'll receive a report from our third-party evaluator in April, is that there are some disconnects in the curricular resources and materials that we have in the district, and the consistency of instruction between classes within a school and classes between the 3 schools. This curriculum audit will help us clarify how we're going to approach Tier 1 instruction, so improving curricular materials, professional development, and teaching in the classroom across the board for all students. We've also issued an RFP for a 9 through 12 ELA adoption. That adoption and the results of that adoption will be for your consideration on the April board meeting. We're also looking at improving our math instruction and math resources. We're working with our current vendors to make sure that each of our classrooms has the materials that they need for mathematics as well. So that's Tier 1. For Tier 2, we're focusing on resources that are in the classroom and outside of class time to help students catch up and to do well in their current courses. So we introduced you to paper online tutoring. We've also introduced you to, and you have approved, Imagine Math, which is a supplemental online program for students in math. We've introduced to you and you've approved Lexia, and Mr. Saldivar will talk more about that as a strategy to help our English learners. We also have multiple opportunities for after-school tutoring for our students. We know that this is not enough based on where our students are, but we are making sure that we are being very vigilant around ensuring students have opportunities to improve. So along that same line, we want to present to you each month how the school district's money is being spent and how we are returning the investment that you have made in our scholars in our schools. So this first presentation will be about Schoology, our learning management system, and paper online tutoring, which was just introduced to the district. So what is Schoology and why is it important? Schoology is our learning management system. This system is a Power School product that integrates with our student information system. This is a platform for teaching and learning through courses, groups, and resources. So we're working our way toward full implementation of Schoology as our learning platform. This helps us organize ourselves. It helps teachers organize themselves and students organize themselves. And in a time where e-learning is very important to us on inclement weather days, or in times where there are times that we have to be out of school, Schoology is that platform that students can go to in order to keep them up to date with their schoolwork. So we have invested heavily, first of all, in just purchasing the application Schoology, but we've also invested in professional development this year. And this is led by Ms. Angela Marino. She's made sure that the opportunities are robust, both in school and after school. We've invested at least $12,000 in professional development for teachers and school leaders. And we have done a range of topics, including just getting started with Schoology, grading in Schoology because it connects with our student information system. Teachers can administer quizzes and tests in Schoology, grade them there, and imports right into our school student information system. Also, we have engaged with certain instructors who are now Schoology master instructors. These are teacher leaders who will be working with their colleagues in schools to make sure that they're up to date with Schoology. So based on some survey information from our 5 Essentials survey last year, what we noticed is that our responses from teachers were that our quality of professional development was very weak. We're attempting to turn that around by making sure that each of our teachers has an opportunity to learn, one, about the applications that we're asking them to engage with, but also in their instruction. I do want to acknowledge our Schoology master instructors. They've had at least one day of very intense training in Schoology, and they will be the point people for our teachers in their schools. When they can't reach someone at the district office, they have someone within their school that can help them with Schoology. So just to wrap up Schoology, we've had about 76 teachers, school, and district leaders who participated in PD sessions this year. Most of them attended during the school day, but many did attend after school hours and were compensated for that time of learning. And some of the things that we've learned is that we should continue to offer PD during the duty periods and use that time as collaboration for teachers during the school day. We ask for feedback from teachers for each of our PD sessions. We ask in these 3 areas, and the quotes there are some of the feedback that we've received from teachers. The next few slides is just a usage display, and that includes usage at the district level and usage at each of our 3 schools. One area that we are going to improve on very quickly is our parents' use of Schoology. We have step-by-step directions that we're going to roll out very soon to make sure that parents have access to their students' Schoology accounts so that they can see what assignments students are completing and the type of work that they are engaging in. So next up is paper online tutoring. Very recently you approved a contract so that we can provide this 24/7 access to one-on-one tutoring through paper online tutoring. So this has just begun. We've invested approximately $176,000 on this application for a period of 18 months. We utilized ESSER funds, which were allocated for remediating learning loss through the federal government. And we kicked off this PD with school leaders and teachers, and we've also engaged in small group scholar engagement. Tony Valente is our champion for paper and has engaged with teachers, new teachers, and with student groups. So this is an example of the paper dashboard. I look at this several times a day because it's very interesting to me. You can see that we have, we can get information about average usage by day, usage by hour, and we can also look for the most requested topics. And what we notice here is that most of our engagements with paper are around mathematics topics. And that makes sense based on where we are in terms of scholar achievement in that area. Next, we can also look at usage by grade level. We can look at the number of tutoring sessions and the number of writing reviews. Information that we can gain from the tutoring sessions is the name of the student, the name of the class that they're hoping to get help with, and we can see a transcript of the tutoring process. So we're looking at that to see what gaps and using this data to better help us understand what students are seeking tutoring for, and so that we can add on to their support in other ways. So next steps, reintroducing paper to our new teachers and mentors, and that happened yesterday at the new teacher PD session. We're also engaging directly with scholars to make sure that they can log on to Clever and to paper online tutoring. We're also partnering with Mr. Davis and the coaches to make sure our scholar athletes have access to and know to access paper. And we're also going to reintroduce the writing reviews to ELA teachers and scholars. Scholars can upload a piece of writing and get feedback on that writing so that they can refine their papers before they're actually turned into their teachers. And again, we'll continue to monitor usage in the platform. So next is a quick update on in our division regarding master scheduling. So our master scheduling committee has met since September of this year, and I want to emphasize that it is a team effort, including folks at the district office and at the school level. This is an interdependent and collective responsibility activity, and this year it is driven primarily by scholars, although we know that there are constraints with teachers and classes, etc., that we need to pay attention to. This is a year-round process. It doesn't start and stop at a particular time of the school year, but it's something that we're paying attention to all throughout the school year. I did want to acknowledge the master scheduling teams at each of our schools and our district leads. Our district leads have been in the background setting up a Power Scheduler, an app within Power School Sys that the district has not utilized previously. This helps us use the brain power of the computer, much like our scholars use the brain power of the computer to make the robot move in order to build our master schedule. So very big kudos to this team. They have worked very hard. They were in professional development today, working with the Power School facilitator to make sure that we have a master schedule built by April. So this is the master scheduling roadmap that we talked about. We started as early as September, professionally developing the master scheduling team and the district team. What we found out when we started planning for this year's master scheduling road is that many of the participants had not had formal training in master scheduling. So we made sure that we invested in those master schedulers at the building and the district level to make sure that we could fully utilize Power Scheduler in order to help us build a robust master schedule. Right now, we're in the middle of the building workshops. Before winter break, students were asked to take paper copies of their course requests home in order to be prepared in January to choose their courses online within Power School. So each student was given the opportunity to go into Power School, choose their courses in Power School. Those course requests are now what's being used to build the sections of courses that will happen, and then ultimately the master schedule. I would like to congratulate the Proviso East team for reaching 100% of students' course requests. That's no easy feat to get 100% of teenagers to do anything. But to choose their courses for next year is a big feat, And basically everyone's at 94% now. So we have almost all of our scholars course requests, and that helps us when we go to the build process. So along the line, again, we're meeting with our facilitator with Power School. 94% of scholars are fully requested. We continue to work with the master scheduling teams at different places. So we're customizing the support for them. In April, we will have a tentative master schedule finalized. In June 19th is when the actual rollover of this year's student data happens and when we can actually commit the schedules. So what you'll see in April is a tentative master schedule. In June, when we get ready to roll over students to the next school year, is when we'll be able to commit that schedule. Of course, we always have students coming and going. So over the summer, counselors will be assigned in summer school to make sure that our incoming ninth graders are scheduled properly and any other students moving into the school district. Then there are several action items, but we do have a presentation from Ms. Fleming and Mr. Saldivar.
Ms. Fleming, please come forward.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mrs. Patterson, President, Mrs. Kelly, Vice President, and Mr. Valterias, Secretary, board members, Dr. Henderson, and community. My name is Ramonda Fleming, and I am the District Coordinator for Student Services. And I'm here to provide you guys a brief overview of how the district supports diverse learners. Special education is a process that involves a few steps. The first one is identification, and that can be completed through child find or a referral from a parent or guardian or school personnel. Typically, if a parent writes a letter requesting an evaluation, we have to meet within 14 school days. The second step is a domain meeting, and this involves all of the members of the team. Each school campus has an IEP team, which includes the special education coordinator, the LEA, general education teacher, school social worker, school psychologist, and sometimes, depending upon the request, maybe an occupational therapist or physical therapist. Step 3 is an eligibility meeting. If it is determined at the domain meeting that further testing is needed, testing is conducted and we meet back at an eligibility meeting to determine if a student is eligible for services. Step 4 is an individualized education plan, or otherwise known as an IEP. If the student is not found eligible for special education, the team may consider eligibility under Section 504. Here are a few of the disability areas: autism, deaf-blindness, deafness, emotional disability, hearing impairments, intellectual disability, multiple disabilities, orthopedic impairment, specific learning disability, speech or language impairment, traumatic brain injury, or visual impairment. If a student qualifies for services and is found eligible, an IEP is then composed, which identifies the unique needs and describes how the school will address those needs. Typically, we review standardized test data as well as curriculum-based measurements. From this, a goal and objective is established and supports are provided. All students are entitled to a free and appropriate education. Some students may receive related services, which again can be provided by the social worker, occupational therapist, physical therapist, speech language pathologist, a deaf, hard of hearing teacher, or visual impaired teacher or counselor. It typically depends on what the student's needs are. There's also accommodations and or modifications that may be recommended for those students. Annually, a meeting is held to discuss progress. Also, reevaluation meetings happen every 3 years. Occasionally, we may have to come to meet for a manifestation determination review, which is held when a student is disciplined or suspended from school for 10 days or more. Therapeutic day schools. Proviso collaborates with approximately 22 different therapeutic day schools. and students with exceptionalities may access a therapeutic day school depending upon their behavior or mental health challenges. It could be medical disability or for education. Sometimes we inherit those students, so in other words, they may already be there now for 8th grade, so for 9th grade, they'll remain in that setting unless there's a recommendation for them now to attend public school. Transition meetings are held, and we discuss if it's recommended for the student to return back to the general education setting. Again, students at therapeutic day schools, they have annual meetings as well as reevaluation meetings. Continuum of services for diverse learners. This is where will the student receive their service. So we offer general education with supports, general education without supports, co-teaching, which involves a special education teacher and a regular education teacher, instructional courses for math, science, and social studies. Transition, there's a program that's held here at Proviso East for students who have completed their 4 years, but they're continuing to receive services, and they can receive those services up until their 22nd birthday. And then we also have a life skills program for students in grades 9 through 12. Students can also receive services if they're on homebound or if they're in a hospital, as well as residential services. Here's a graph showing Proviso East educational placement, and at the bottom, it's just showing students in grades 9, 10, 11, and 12, how many students are receiving services in the gen ed setting, in a COTOT setting, students that are considered ELL or dually identified, the instructional setting, life skills, and transition. And if you look at the students in the gen ed setting, you will see that our freshmen, right now there are 47 students in the gen ed setting receiving services. In the COTOT setting, there are 90 freshmen receiving services in the COTOT setting. There are 2 students in grade 10 that are out in the gen ed setting for EO, and there are 39 freshmen in the instructional setting. Proviso West, again, it's the educational placement where they are receiving their services. And as you can see, it's a smaller percentage for freshmen, it's 32%. However, if you look at the seniors, there's quite a bit that are in the general education setting. Optimally, it is best for students to receive their services in the gen ed setting. We want students to be able to access the least restrictive environment and be educated along their non-disabled peers. PMSA, all students receive their services in a gen ed setting. Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, this is where students will receive a 504 plan. It's considered a civil rights law. It's not a part of an IEP. They're totally separate. There are 2 different laws that govern a 504 versus an IEP. Typically, we may receive a referral from a clinical or medical professional suggesting that a student may benefit from a 504 plan. And basically what it does is just remove barriers to learning. There's changes to the environment, not instruction. Reasonable accommodations are provided, such as extended time on test, or allowing students to leave the classroom for short breaks. These meetings are typically facilitated by the school counselors at each campus. Thank you.
All right.
I'm not running like Ramondo, so letting everybody know.
When did you get down questions?
After this presentation right here. You're gonna try to make it, Doc? You don't have to.
Pues, saludos. Welcome, everyone. My name is Ernesto Saldivar Jr. I am the District Coordinator for English Language Learners as well as for Equity. And it is a pleasure to be here with everyone tonight and to talk a little bit about our program and really think about el lenguaje, la cultura, and academics. How do the 3 come together? Can someone help with the presentation? Thank you. All right, we're going to begin with the aligning our program with the mission, vision, and the purpose of our district, right? The mission is to ensure that we pursue nothing but the best for our students. So if we focus on 3 specific areas, compliance, and we focus on academic achievement with the preservation of lenguaje and cultura in the classrooms, as well as aligning Title III grant funding to ensure that we have equitable family and community engagement opportunities within our district, then we will see our program really begin to develop an equitable path towards the alignment of resources. And when I'm talking about the alignment of resources, I'm looking at resources such as human capital, financial, and technical, which will then lead for us and our students to truly achieve equity, excellence, and relevance for all, right? And this is something that we're striving to do. So if we could go on to the next slide, please. Thank you. So los números. What is our historical data for EL? So this year, let me begin by saying this. We have about 21% of our students across the district are classified or identified as English language learners. All right. This number, 907, was as of last Friday. As of this morning, there are 10 additional students. So we now have 917 students that have been identified as English language learners in our district. This is important for us to know, right? Because we're seeing that this population has steadily increased throughout the history of this district. And one thing to point out is if we look at years 2021 and 2022, prior to my arrival, there was an under-identification of English language learners across the district. And so this is something that we are definitely addressing and something that we are working towards moving so we can ensure that our students are receiving the right services and are programmed correctly as a result. All right, there are still some changes that happen systemically and structurally as we continue to build out this program. I do want to be transparent about that, but I'm also very excited and happy about the fact that Dr. Carvelis has been a chief in really promoting leadership that is equitable and really looking towards the opportunity of collective responsibility, as we can see in the next slide. All right. So las caras de nuestros English language learners. So the faces of our English language learners. 85% of our English language learners are long-term ELs, which means they are from the United States or they have been in the United States for more than 3 years. All right, the remaining approximately 15% are students that represent 16 different countries throughout the world, from Central America, South America, Europe, Africa, and South Asia. Along that, we have students that speak approximately 8 different languages in our district. We have English, Polish, Wolof, French, Yoruba, and Tagalog. All right, we can move on to the next one. And so when we look at our students and the diversity within our EL population, we also want to take into consideration how are we meeting their academic needs. When we look at overall district achievement, so if we really want to be equitable in looking at data, whether it's STAR or whether it's PSAT, SAT, we need to look at it in a disaggregated way. If we don't do that, then we're just looking at the branches and not getting to the roots of problems, right? So one thing that I definitely want to point out is our ELs have significantly underperformed in ELA, in math, science, and in access. And so what this means is that there's a couple of questions that we need to ask ourselves. So what this means is that there's a couple of questions that we need to ask ourselves, right? What's happening to our instructional program? What's happening within our curricular program? And what's happening within our overall transitional bilingual educational program? How are we placing students? What type of services are they receiving inside the classroom and outside of the classroom? Okay? And so these are things that we're working towards, and these are things that we're addressing as we continue to move forward with our programs. Move on to the next slide, please.
And one of those first components is really thinking about access. Access is the English language proficiency assessment that's taken on a yearly basis for all EL identified students across the district. This year is the first year that we see that our EL students, over 95% of our EL students participated in the access assessment. So this is by no feat. I need to make sure that everyone gives a round of applause to Dr. Carvalho, to Ms. Soto, to Ms. Medina. Their efforts have really significantly impacted what we are doing in the district. So this is something to applaud. We went as far back as 2012, and we never broke 80% in access participation. Why is this important? Access scores identify what type of placement our EL students should be in. They identify and determine and inform teachers of the type of curricular, instructional modifications and accommodations that we should be implementing to support our English language learners, right? And additionally, they help us, they would provide students with pathways towards receiving the seal of biliteracy or the commendation towards biliteracy by the Illinois State Board of Education. These are all elements and things that can really catapult the student, not just for their own success, but to really guarantee multi-generational success for their families and the communities at large. So we can go on to the next one. And so, la misión for our program, what is it that we're doing? So Lexia Power Up, as we mentioned before, is a blended literacy program that ELA teachers are implementing in the classrooms. Yes, there have been some hiccups. Yes, there have been some hiccups with the implementation. There have been some hiccups with the technology and the tech aspect of things. However, we are starting to see that more and more students are accessing this platform. And research shows students who use this platform are 5 times more effectively at reaching levels of comprehension and outpacing general education students on high stakes assessments, right? Because this program focuses on 3 very specific skills: word knowledge, comprehension, and grammar. 3 things that really support students' literacy development and for them to develop a literacy identity for themselves. All right. Additionally, we are also implementing intensive professional learning opportunities. For example, tomorrow we actually have our partners at the Illinois State Board of Education who are coming to do a professional development with our SPED teachers on how to write IEPs for our dual identified students. This is something that we saw that I recognized as a need last year. It was reinforced through the audit this year. And so I'm glad that we are now in a space that we are able to really move forward and provide pathways for teachers to be supported and for students to be supported in that process. Right. Additionally, English language, we are providing ongoing professional development for the Lexia implementation. Tomorrow we have another meeting with our Lexia partners that the ELA teachers will be participating in. And this is not a one-and-cut type of PD. This is a long-term PD to really help the implementation process. Additionally to that, I have led district-wide professional learning for our staff. So thank you, Dr. Carvelis, for those opportunities in terms of being able to really think about how do we, just informing our teachers, how do we unpack and interpret access scores? What does that mean? How do we even look at the English language development standards and WIDA? Right? How do we use model performance indicators or MPIs to help inform our own instruction and how we accommodate our students? And these are ongoing PDs that we will continue to do throughout the remainder of the year and really catapult us for a very strong foundation for implementing changes at the beginning of next year. All right. Additionally, we are making significant changes to student programming. We are expanding, or we are creating what we would call a newcomer academy for our new students, for our students that are new to the country. So currently, we only offer one class, which is EL Foundations in English. We're expanding that so all students will receive EL Foundations courses in core content areas, which is English, math, science, and social studies. Also, we are making sure that we are going to be extremely intentional when it comes to programming our students, that we program our students based on their English language proficiency levels at each grade level. So what that means is that EL development courses, we're going to have sections that are dedicated for students that are scoring between a level 1 and a 3.4 on access. And there would be another section where students will be scoring a level 3.5 to a 4.7 on access. This helps teachers really target instruction and helping students bridge their linguistic and academic abilities. All right, so we can close those achievement gaps that we're seeing in high-stakes assessments. All right, the last and final component really is thinking about family and community engagement. And this is where I look and talk to the parents. Les suplico, we need your support, right? We've been trying to establish a district-wide bilingual parent advisory council. We have some parent representatives, which we're really excited about, but we definitely need our bilingual parent community to step up and be leaders within the district. Necesitamos su liderazgo. Por favor, vengan, apóyennos para hacer unos programas y unos cambios aquí en el distrito para apoyarles a ustedes y a los estudiantes. Right? And so we want to make sure that through this parent engagement, parent and community engagement opportunity, we're able to expand the various tools and resources that we can bring into the district. For example, one of my goals is to partner with USHLI, the United States Hispanic Leadership Institute, which provides a grassroots community building organizing for parents as well as for students to support their post-secondary plans. We have Avanza Strategies, who's dedicated specifically to supporting immigrant students or newcomers in this country to preparing them with the pathway towards college and career readiness. I also want to partner with other community-based organizations like Liberate and others to really support holistic, well-rounded support for families, because again, EL programming and my approach to this work is not just to support the student, but to support the student and their families to ensure that there's multi-generational growth and wealth within them.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. At this time, do we have any questions around these three presentations?
Ms. Medina?
Ready? What's the criteria to have participation in schools for STAR? I mean, why did we start using STAR? If we used to use the PSAT, and all students used to take the SAT or PSAT, and we're using those scores. Why are we now giving additional testing? And I understand that you want to track, but if not all the students are taking this test, it seems unnecessary for us to do this testing. Why not use the tests that all the students are taking with the data that we get from those tests, when historically all high school districts have done so?
Yeah, so an important aspect of helping our students get where they need to be is checking the pulse of where students' achievement is. So I sometimes make an analogy as to why we would need to check our blood pressure every week when we know that we have high blood pressure. It's something that we need to track over time to see how our students are doing. The test at the end of the year is an autopsy, really. It is students' results from all of their education up until that point, and it doesn't help us to use just that one piece of information to better teach them, instruct them, to build assessments for them. So just as you would take your blood pressure over time or check your temperature over time, if something's wrong, you need to be able to diagnose then to use that information to improve instruction in the classroom.
Correct. Except that we've increased the class size. We haven't provided the budgets to many of the teachers until later in the year, or the textbooks. And we know that additional testing time takes test prep and takes time away from teaching. So giving more test prep actually takes away time, contact time, teaching time in the classroom, which then impacts the test scores. So additional testing seems, when we're getting the same kind of data, I'm not seeing the value.
sorry, was there a
What's the
question?
value?
What is the
If
question?
you have increased class sizes, you now have 35 students per class. Increased class sizes take away from the learning experience. We're not providing the budgets that all the teachers needed to be able to teach their classes. And on top of that, we're now putting more testing time in. I understand that you're saying that you're getting data, but we put all these roadblocks in the way of teaching and learning. It seems that this testing is not really, I don't understand the value. There are so many other things.
What I can say about the STAR assessment is that it's a computer adaptive assessment that takes probably a class period to administer. So the investment in time is a class period for us to get information that we can use day to day to help students. That's a well invested class period in my opinion.
Okay. What are your plans to reduce the class sizes for the district? Because the class size impacts performance.
I'll take that. We're following the union, PTU's document. That's the plan.
Well, we need to, it's a CBA actually, but reduction in class size will impact the performance that the students have. Because what research shows is that when you have large class sizes, you're going to decrease the performance, and it's already evident.
Actually, research does not show that, Ms. Medina. Research shows as long as you're teaching, it matters not the number of students in a classroom. That's what empirical data says.
Could you cite the research or
You can go ahead and look it up for yourself.
Well, if you could send it to me, I'd really appreciate it. Thanks.
Yes.
It seems like we're using more and more programs. Every time you come, you're coming with more and more and more programs. And what we have is an issue of teacher-student relationship, because teachers are the ones that teach students, not programs. Why aren't we increasing teacher contact?
Teacher contact.
Yes,
with the
for
student.
tutoring,
So
instead of
what I
having
mentioned,
instead of having a program, why aren't we giving, like what we used to have an ELOS time, or, there's other ways of ensuring that the teachers have more time with their students. Why aren't we looking for those relationships? Because oftentimes that contact with the teacher, maybe it's talking, that does a lot more for the learning experience for the student.
So brought us back to the next actions and continuous improvement slide. What I explained about the first part, the curriculum resources update, is key to this conversation. So according to Richard Elmore, there are 3 parts of the instructional core: the teacher, the student, and the content. So what you said is correct about teacher and student relationship. We also have to look at the student's relationship to the content that they're being taught and the rigor by which they are engaging with the content. And then we also have to invest in the teacher, in professionally developing the teacher. What Dr. Elmore asserts is that you must improve all 3 at the same time in order to improve academic achievement at scale. So we are investing in professional development for teachers. We are investing in students taking ownership of their learning. We're also going to improve the text, the task, the content that students have access to. I was just across the hall and picked up a book in a personal finance classroom and noticed that the copyright was 2016. What I asked my colleagues in the room is, how much has changed in personal finance since 2016? We talked about cryptocurrency. We talked about the impacts of the global pandemic on personal finance. We talked about many current projects. What we're noticing that is across the board, that we have not invested heavily in the curricular resources that we should for our students. What you'll find in April is that we're going to bring before you for your consideration a complete overhaul of our 9th through 12th grade ELA curriculum. ELA and students' ability to be literate is going to impact every other course that they take in their high school career. And we have not invested heavily in ensuring that there's a viable and guaranteed curriculum that every teacher has access to, that every teacher has been professionally developed around, and that every student has access to. And that is our commitment, and you will have a recommendation brought to you in April to address that.
So rigor is also impacted by the 50% rule policy, which I think that we need to evaluate. And I bring this up every meeting because rigor is impacted by the ability of teachers really getting grit into the classroom. Are we going to look at revising that policy or at least looking at the impact that that policy has on teaching and learning?
The rigor lies in the task. Dr. Elmore also talks about the task predicting performance. The information that we're putting in front of students every day has to be at a rigor level that meets the state standard. What I'm proposing to you is that the task that we are putting in front of students every day and that our curriculum audit findings will show is that there is a disconnect between classroom to classroom. It could be the same task, but a different teacher teaching it a different way is going to up the rigor or lower the rigor. What we'll also find is that teachers are teaching various ways and various means. They have a written curriculum that's been provided to them. However, they have great latitude in the type of task that they put before students every day. We cannot predict performance if we cannot say what the task is before our students every day and what that assessment is that's connected to the task that we put in front of them every day. So yes, the rigor is up and down, back and forth in our district because we don't have a handle yet, but we will have more clarity next month after the curriculum audit is finished to determine where we are and how we need to improve the rigor in our classrooms.
And who's doing the audit?
That is Insight Education Group.
Where they from?
Approved that contract for the third party.
I understand. Where
Okay, Ms. Medina, we have some other questions here. Sam?
Yes, I have a question. So I really didn't understand. I think you flew by these PowerPoint slides on 15 and 16 where you talk about the average user information for the last 30 days.
For Schoology?
The pie, yeah. So I see there's a very low parent participation. I know it's just 30 days, but what is that exactly? Was that for those 30 days?
Yes, so this is just the last 30 days of usage. So what we have concentrated on in the first months of this school year is making sure that all teachers are utilizing Schoology. And as you can see, we're still at 50-50, even with administrators using Schoology.
Right, so my follow-up question is, is it important, I'm sure it is, for parents to participate as well, because I see 1% across all three schools.
Yes, I have asked Ms. Marino, and she's collaborated with Mr. Moon and Mr. Swanson in the IT department to create a step-by-step guide for parents. We're in the process of rolling that out. We want to make sure that there's no frustration with parents when they go to Schoology and their child's teacher doesn't have a Schoology account set up with full access to information in Schoology. So we're trying to close that gap so that parents won't be frustrated when they go to their child's class and they see that their teacher is not yet utilizing Schoology.
Okay, great, thank you.
I see our scores are still so very, very low in math and reading. Are we still articulating with our feeder schools, and to what level?
Yes, so even more closely with our feeder schools, foundation schools this year, we've started early reaching out to articulate, particularly many of our foundation schools are interested in ensuring that scholars coming in as ninth graders can get credit for high school courses that they're taking at the foundation school now. So we're codifying that process with our foundation schools to make sure that they can get that credit. We are also, because of the the Math and Science Academy's application process, we do have access to the PSAT 8-9 scores from all of our foundation schools, and we're using that information to begin to tier students for support coming into ninth grade. So for instance, we have the Reading 1 and Reading 2 course in high schools to help, and East and West to help students who are struggling in reading. We can identify those students through the PSAT 8-9 scores that they took as an 8th grader for the MSA process. Similarly, we're going to build in an algebraic reasoning course that pairs with IM 1 and 2, Integrated Math 1 and 2, to support students coming in with lower math skills.
So do we still have the students coming here for algebra?
We do have a class at West coming over from Hillside, yes.
So only
But
one
many foundation schools are offering algebra in the 8th grade for their scholars, and foreign languages, world languages as well.
Are these feeder schools or foundation schools, are they monitoring or mirroring the schools that are doing well?
Well, there's several of them, and unfortunately I don't know all of their strategies for working with their students. I'm getting to know them better now over time and have good relationships with their assistant superintendents and other directors of education, but because they're separate school districts, it's hard to get our hands around how they are engaging with their students.
Yeah, because everyone looks at Proviso and they're not looking at the feeder schools. These are the students that we're getting.
Yes.
Any other questions?
I had a question. There's some question.
Amanda?
Yes. My questions are actually all from Ramonda Fleming regarding our diverse learners. Good evening. I've heard a lot of complaints from the beginning of the school year from parents and teachers regarding students with IEPs and 504s not being supported correctly or as well as we could be doing. And that includes students not getting their special education minutes, students not being placed properly in co-taught classrooms, overdue IEP meetings that were completely forgotten and had to be rescheduled. Students with IEPs or 504s not being placed in the least restrictive environments that they could be. Students with IEPs being suspended out of school without proper placement and for too long. I've also heard complaints about students with special needs being placed on Edgenuity classes without proper assistance and no modifications being made to Edgenuity for IEPs and 504 plans. Can you touch on, you gave an overview of the program, but can you touch on some of the challenges that have happened over this past year regarding our efforts to support this group?
So, yes, at the beginning of the year, some of those complaints that you mentioned, I am aware of those. Some are valid and some are not. So,
Speaking of that,
I apologize. So some of the, well, here.
I don't think it's on. Sorry, hang up, Ramonda, so you can be heard.
Some of the complaints that you
Not
mentioned,
on.
I am aware of. Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Okay,
thank you.
Great. Some of the complaints that you mentioned, I am aware of. However, at the beginning of the school year, there was some challenges. As far as students with IEPs accessing the least restrictive environment, it is aligned to what their IEP states. And so there were, how should I say this? There was documentation provided to identify those students who should be in co-teaching, instructional, or gen ed courses. So it goes according again to what's labeled inside of the IEP. So we're just not saying, hey, you here, you're gonna go there. It's based on what's in the IEP. And if that did not happen and it was brought to my attention, then I would send a letter out to the counseling staff requesting a revision of their schedule.
Now, if a student does have an IEP, are their teachers required to be aware of that?
Yes, absolutely. And so it's documented inside of Power School. So there's an emoji that identifies a student with an exceptionality as well as the accommodations. And so this school year was the first year that teachers were asked to send out IEP summaries to all of the teachers on the course schedule.
Okay, and then whose responsibility is it to make sure the teachers know about those IEPs?
The SPED coordinators.
Okay, and then we have one of those at each school?
We did, yes. So at West, there's a coordinator, and then at East right now, I'm taking on that responsibility.
Okay, so we no longer have a special ed coordinator at East?
No, ma'am.
Did we ever have one at PMSA?
No, we did not. What happens is that we have a teacher that comes from West and teachers that comes from East to service those students.
Okay, so I'm asking because I know in the beginning of the year we had a huge problem with teachers not knowing which students had IEPs. And in fact, the board majority here, I believe, fired a teacher and suspended a teacher for reaching out to parents to try to get that information. How do we explain that?
Explain what part?
Can you hold on one second? Since she's talking about matter of personnel and suspension, Mr. Gleason, how far do we go with this?
Well, I don't know that Ms. Fleming has the details of that.
I don't, actually.
Okay. Well, I'm asking if teachers are responsible for having the IEPs, but they're not given the IEPs, how do we fix that process?
So basically what happened, when we did find out that there was a teacher reporting that she didn't know that the student had an IEP, typically we just send that information to the teacher so that she is aware.
Okay, so teachers should have these IEPs by like first week of school, second week of school?
Ideally, they should have it on the first day of school.
On the first
and so
day.
We have put in some procedures and practices to eliminate that. And so what happens is that this school year, before teachers leave, they will know who they have on their case management, but I'm sure when they return that they will send out the IEP summaries to prevent that happening.
Okay, so if they don't have the IEPs by the first day of school, where's that shortcoming?
Maybe because they didn't send it out. Because the IEPs, we have a system. We have a system called Embrace IEP. So any student that had a meeting, the IEP is inside Embrace IEP.
Okay, that's not how I'm understanding it. My last question, are you related by blood or marriage to Dr. Henderson?
No, I am not.
You're not? Okay.
No, ma'am.
Thank you.
She did want a good woman to have family. So
Madam President,
that was
I
a
got a...
ignorant question.
I have questions.
Is she related? Go ahead.
Go ahead.
How many teachers do we have in the co-teaching situation for our diverse learners? Can you speak into the mic? Her mic's up.
I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
That's not...
Testing.
I'm not sure of the numbers of co-teachers, but we do have co-teachers in each core course at each campus. Well, Proviso East and Proviso West.
Because I've been told by parents that they have students in classes and they're supposed to have a co-teaching situation and the co-teacher's not there.
Okay, if that is happening, I'm not aware of it. It is my understanding that that is taken care of. So do you know what campus?
Both East and West, I've heard from parents.
Okay, I can look into it for you, but that's not my understanding at all.
Okay, that's good to know. Are we going to change any of the accommodations going forward for the PMSA kids for services?
Can you give me an example of accommodation?
We don't have any person on that is like a staple in PMSA. Are we looking to have somebody that the kids can go to and they can start addressing issues? Because even though PMSA may be high-performing students, they're still diverse learners. They still need more supports than what many of the students are getting.
So are you suggesting like a resource teacher?
Yeah, at least something. I mean, they don't have anyone there.
So are you familiar with Dr. Walker?
No.
Okay. He has a special education background. And so typically, if there are any questions about special education, he or I can handle those. But that is a good idea, and we can definitely look into that.
Okay, because I think that would help parents. There's a lot of frustration from parents that have come to me to talk about that.
Are there any other questions?
I got a question, but this is for the linguistically diverse learner community.
To who?
For Ernesto Saldiva Jr. My question is just, when does this initiative for the EL learners begin? Was it this year or at the beginning of the year, or it's been going on for a couple of years?
This initiative started when I first got here. My first year was really dedicated to unpacking the data, looking at historical practices, understanding and triangulating student performance on access, PSAT data, and other data that was available, such as graduation rates, quarterly grades, et cetera, et cetera. So I created a plan last year, and that really helped us kind of lay down a very strong foundation for implementation so that we would be prepared for an audit in case there was one.
Okay, great. So it's pretty much the beginning of this school year, correct?
The planning process started last year, yes.
Ah, okay, great. That's what I need to know. Thank you.
I have a question, Mr. Saldiva. According to the equity study that we did a couple of years ago, we had about 30% of the students of Latino descent that their parents did not speak English. And are we looking into getting any type of services so that parents, ELL parents can come to these meetings and actually understand what's happening? And how many translators do we currently have on each campus?
So that's a two-part question. So I'll answer the first part in terms of any type of resources that we may have. We do have resources that were purchased last year with title funding to help with translation services. So for example, like if we needed to, use microphones or headsets, there has been staff that has been trained on that, and there's one available for each campus as well as one available for the district. So that has been invested. We do definitely need to identify other opportunities.
One?
I said four.
One for each?
Four. One per campus as well as the district. So there's four total. One for each campus and one for the district. Yeah. So we do have that resource. We do have that technology available. Now, as far as how many translators are at each campus, it is my understanding that each campus has a translator available to them. And in the case that there's additional things that need to be translated, Ms. Naomi Mendiota has been amazing and a phenomenal resource for that, which I completely applaud a lot of her efforts, especially with the district newsletter and everything that she's been doing. So she's definitely a wonderful resource that we have in the district as well. Now, the other part of your question was, can you repeat that one more time?
The second one, no, that was the second part, is how many translators are available at each campus. I've had some parents contact me saying that they've come to the schools and they have not been able to get any information, and the only thing that they get is no hablo. And so I'm trying to figure out if we had the translation services or if we had translators, because why are parents still being turned around and not getting assistance?
And I will say this publicly, no parent or student should be turned around or denied or not communicated to, because there are there are bilingual speakers, especially Spanish. I mean, if it comes to like someone who speaks French, someone who speaks Polish, those are few and far in between, right? But in case of a Spanish-speaking individual or family comes into the building, by no means should that person be turned around, and I would highly recommend that they speak to the principal directly or ask to speak to the principal directly.
And how is our co-teaching going with our ELL students?
So co-teaching with EL students, we do not necessarily have that model implemented yet. So I'm really excited in terms of like, could that be an opportunity for co-teaching? Could there be an opportunity for co-teaching? Yes, there can. Should there be a need for co-teaching? Absolutely. And let me actually just take that statement back, because I did forget about just one specific situation where we have a PMSA teacher who is teaching a class, a math class at Proviso West, and there's a teacher, another ESL endorsed art teacher in that class supporting those students on campus. So there are some more opportunities, and that's one of the things that I definitely have been very instrumental in looking. There are a number of ESL or bilingual endorsed staff, mainly ESL staff, that are not servicing any EL students at all whatsoever. We have a driver's ed staff member who has an ESL endorsement. We have an auto person who is ESL endorsed. We have art individuals who are ESL endorsed. We have people that are teaching computer science that are EL endorsed, but yet they do not have any EL courses. My question is why? This has been historical practice, and so those are the practices and a cultural change that needs to happen on every single end. With programming, with teacher practice, as well as with administrative accountability.
Yeah. Okay. And last question on that. You mentioned the word transitional English, and in my ear, I got quite upset. Are we back to with our newer students that are coming in? Are we back into transitional English practices?
So our program is, by federal guidelines, it's called the TBE, Transitional Bilingual Education Program, right? That's what we operate under. Ideally, what I would love to see within 5 years would be a dual language academy or dual language program of instruction be implemented in the district. That's going to take a large number of stakeholder input and a huge lift on not just me as the EL programmer, but the board, the community, teachers, because it's something to build towards, right? In terms of practice, this is why we're making sure that every single staff member in our district is informed with or about WIDA English Language Development Standards, because regardless of where the student is, if I am not an ESL endorsed teacher, but I have an EL student in my classroom, it is my legal responsibility to make sure that I service that student accordingly, because it is their civil right. And that's something that I have been stressing and pushing throughout the district.
Rodney?
I'm good.
I don't have a question. I'm just going to make a statement. I hope we're in the business of supporting all students, every student. I met a family from Africa, non-English speaking. So I hope that we're servicing all students, whether they're Latino, non-Latino, black, white, green, yellow, orange. All students should be educated and have a right to free public education.
Thank you. All right, let's move to finance.
I got another question about that.
Oh.
Sorry, Doc. Doc, as far as ratios, according to federal or state guidelines for ELL, I know what would the ratios be, looking at the numbers that were given out here by Mr. Salazar for these English language learners. What are the ratios for having an interpreter? I see there's mostly Spanish besides the Philippines and Nika and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Everything else, in the United Kingdom, everybody else speaks Spanish in a different tone, in a different way, but they all speak Spanish. So what are those state guidelines and federal guidelines for interpreters to service these students?
That's a great question. In full transparency, there are no state guidelines. The only thing that we do use is the Transitional Program of Instruction. A TPI program is where those students are placed, because the federal guidelines are 20 or more students who speak the same language are in a TBE program. Students who speak with less than 20 are put in a TPI program. Our TPI program, because we do have few and far in between students who speak a language other than Spanish, they are put into the TBE courses due to personnel. We don't have, EL teachers, it's a national shortage, right? So we are maximizing, again, the human resources that we do have, or the human capital that we do have in the district, and we're continuing to revamp that as well as we move forward.
Can you go on to the next?
My last comment, please. You know what? With all due respect, Mr. Alexander, I heard you say this before, but we're an equitable school, so when we talk about Latinos, we're focusing on them for now, but yeah, we're focused on all the students. If some kid from another country came and said, hey, they don't have a, for example, a Republic of Congo translator, I will worry about it. But right now it's about equity, not equality. Equality is everybody gets $1. Equity is you get 5 because you need more. That's the difference. So just with all due respect, you know, I am Latino. I came here without speaking the language, and I do care for all the students. But right now, there's an issue with the Latino students because we got a lot of people from Venezuela coming because they're allowed they're allowed refugee status. So that's why we have an issue with this now. And we had it before. So with all due respect, I do serve all the students. Anybody, any race, and you know, they all know me because I grew up mostly with the black community, lived in Humboldt Park my whole life. Most of my friends, most of my family were mostly all black, just so you guys know. But I care for all the students and I understand everybody, so, you know, we're here to serve all the students. But at this time, for equity purposes, we have to focus on what the Latino students need, or not even Latino, because we have a lot of Latinos here, mostly half of the school is Latino, but the ELL students, the ones that don't speak the language.
I would say I'm sad that we are moving back towards transitional English because we had moved away from it. It's not an equitable practice.
Well, let me be clear on that.
We need to move on. We have several other programs and we have people here to make comments, so.
All right, Dr. Williams, will you quickly close this out? Thank you, Ms. Fleming and Mr. Salvador.
There are 7 action items for your consideration this evening, so I'll go through those quickly. First are the Power School renewals. We have several applications that we need to renew for the upcoming school year. I have listed the total investment of approximately $180,000 with a variety of funding sources, including some of our federal funds. The second item is the Power School Professional Development. Again, we're going to focus on developing our teachers and school leaders around Schoology, our LMS, and also Performance Matters, which will help us with our assessment platforms. Newsella is a application that primarily our ELA teachers use. However, it can be used in any content area to make sure that our students have access to nonfiction text. That is an investment of approximately $59,000, and we're funding that through the ESSER Digital Equity Grant, and that is a one-time grant from the state using flow-through ESSER funds. We're also asking for your approval to renew No Red Ink and professional developments in that area, and this is a grammar tool, a supplemental service for students to increase their grammar skills. Also, we have at total investment of $61,000 a supplemental math material for Proviso East High School. This is being funded through their school improvement grant based on their status as a targeted school according to the ISB summative designation. We also have something coming to us in the form of a grant for the Gene Haas Foundation grant. And this is a grant that we've been awarded several years in a row to support scholars at Proviso West High School. And finally, we do have proposed updates to the curriculum handbook to make sure that our course offerings are aligned with our classification of instructional programs and our CTE program. And that is the conclusion of that.
All right. We want to hear from our finance team, Dr. Kaneen and Mr. Moody and Mesereau. Please come forward.
Good evening, Board of Education.
Sure, sir.
Is this one on? Yeah. You can hear me, can't you?
Very much so.
Good evening, Board of Education.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening.
Last month when we met, it was Valentine's Day. So I had my red for Valentine's Day. This month, you see I'm displaying my green for St. Patrick's Day. And I want to congratulate, anybody still here, Proviso East for leading the celebration, starting the celebration in the Forest Park Parade. They were the hit. In fact, they came in second in my feelings of who captured the parade, falling only behind my granddaughter walking as a daisy. They did a magnificent job of firing us up for the holidays.
Thank you.
So as we look at my report, and I will try to be brief, I want to hit on 4 different areas. We met with our insurance brokers, Vista International, to talk about our self-funded insurance program. And what we found is that this has not been a good year for our insurance program. Meaning we've had a number of people who have claims due to hospital stays or doctor stays in the amount that were $1 million over our projections. What are we going to do about this? Well, we are going, there is, if you see that big red number, $1,123,000 that is the medical deficit. And so what we are going to do is convene the insurance committee again. We are going to, probably at your next board meeting, seek disaggregating the insurance fund from the rest of the ed fund. So they are now commingled. So when you see in your budget and when you see in your fund balances, $3 million of that fund balance is insurance reserve. That essentially belongs to the insurance program. So we want to make sure you know where we are with our reserves, and we set our premiums to ensure that these reserves always exist. The reserves are for rainy days. It's really raining this year. We have to make sure that we will cover our costs by our premiums. So we will be reporting back to you with recommendations from the insurance committee that not only represents you, but represents all our employees to set reasonable premiums that will cover the cost of our program. I'll answer some quick questions if you have that on that.
I got a question. It might not be relevant, so maybe I don't know what I'm asking. So, Silicon Valley Bank just the first and second biggest banks in the nation just went bankrupt. Not bankrupt, but they got liquidated. You know, all the banks are under fire right now. Stock market lost $490 billion the last past 3 days. How is this going to affect
our budgetary reserves? And essentially what's happened is all the deposits at the Silicon Bank are being honored. We are going to look at our banks with a close eye to make sure that they are not on any list, and right now we don't have them on any list, to ensure that our deposits are kept safe. The other thing we do, and by we, the township treasurer, and when we say we have $70 million in reserves, that doesn't mean we have $70 million in the bank. We don't keep that much money in the bank. So what we do is we invest our fund balances in treasury notes, in municipal bonds, safe, very safe harbors for our money. So our total fund balance is not exposed to the amount that it would look like in fund balances.
I have a question. So usually when you issue bonds, you already have a capital project that you're issuing bonds to.
Okay, I think you're going to my second part of my presentation.
So can you hold until he's done, Ms. Medina?
And that is on why issue, it's a great leading question, why issue $71 million in new bonds instead of using fund balances to support programs. I put a few bullet points that we have discussed as why we're doing it. And if you look at the bullet points, and I want to stop and answer the question as I'm going on. Chicken or egg? Do you want to make sure you have the money before you go out and spend architectural fees to create projects? Or do you make sure you have the money and then seek the projects? Now, my good friend LT over there would say $150 million of projects we could be looking at. We've got old buildings. West is our new building, and it is considered an old building. I think it is realistic to say that to keep our buildings up to date, we would need more than $71 million. Much more than $71 million. But this allows you to do bigger projects. This allows you to go out and through economy of scale. One of the things I'm showing you here is what if you just invested, and this, I don't know if they have the measure.
Yeah.
You have it? If you look at the March 14th Mesereau document, you will see there is two options here. And I'm strongly recommending the debt service one. But let's say you didn't want to do that. Let's say every year you said, I'm going to invest $3,500,000 in improving our buildings. Over 20 years, you're going to get to 71 million. But what is the cost of not doing major projects in comparison to $3,550,000? By putting that $71 million together, you can go out and you can bid big projects. You can combine. And if you talk to any of these construction managers, they're going to bid much more aggressively on bigger projects than smaller projects. And in essence, and we've got these numbers, these figures as approximates, but probably underestimating, there's going to be a 5% cost escalation in construction and not putting in bigger projects and not getting that economy of scale. So if you compare that over a 20-year period, the bond issue is comparable to waiting for this. It is the same. Now, I want to reiterate again what we talked about last month. And what we talked about last month is How do we come up with this 71 million? How do we come up with that number? And that number was generated under two concepts. One, no increase in property taxes for our taxpayers. Number two is to ensure our academic program will not be touched by these funds. And that's what we did. Now, how can we do that? How can we do all these things? Because you set aside money to invest in your schools. And you need to do that. We could walk the halls here, we could go over to West, and again, the amount that we really need is twice this. But in order to keep those promises I made to you last month, we had to tell Metro, generate this, and they came up with $71 million. $71 million is a conservative number, but it's built on those two premises. Care about the taxpayers, care about your educational program. And that's what this chart represents. Yes?
So in asking about these bonds and going to some people who actually deal with these bonds, they said that these were very high interest yielding bonds. And that over the 20-year period under which we're going to be paying this, it would actually accrue about $41 million in interest for the district to pay back, which means that the money that we get for the $2 or $3 million that we get for from the I don't remember the source, but it's escaping my mind at this moment. The $2 or $3 million that we get usually for grounds from the federal government or state government, I can't remember which one of the two it is, would then just go to, and then for the next 20 years, to paying these high interest yields. It would be much better to wait to do this, a big part, unless we have it attached already to a specific project. But right now, the interest rates, right now, I was told the interest rates are so high that we're going to be eaten up in interest, which will make it impossible for us to do any other projects for the district over the next 20 years.
No. Number one, the interest rates are not that high in you have to wait till I finish my sentence, in non-taxable bonds. And that's what we are able to generate. We are generating very reasonable interest rates, and we have the experts here that are probably going to nod my head and say, your head on this, that in essence, if we just deposited this money, we could be close to breaking even. My friend Todd keeps saying, well, tell the board that you've got this money in your fund balance, it's invested, it's not going to cost more than it would just using fund balances. And that's what my chart says here. You're right. Interest rates, bonds, and everything is in my numbers. The bond issue, the bond cost, Mesro, everything is in this number. And the cost over a 20-year period is $118,000. That's 118 million, excuse me. I only wish it was thousands.
118 million is $40 million in interest, which is what I said.
Yes. Pardon? No, I need to emphasize this. If you took that 71 million and you didn't have any projects, you know what? Over 20 years you'd break even by investing 71 million for 5%. And we can get that now on our investment. The misnomer here is, yes, the Fed rate has gone up, and we all hear that. We all hear the cost of borrowing. It has not affected your bonds significantly now because of the tax-free nature. And we're able to generate this. So in essence, it is a financially good thing to have this. And again, I don't think you're going to have any problems picking and choosing $71 million of projects to fix your buildings.
So a nuance that was brought up to my attention is that the way that it was written in the previous document and not in this one is that these bonds, we would be paying interest only for many years, and then in the last 5 years is when we actually have to pay back the 71 million. At least that's what the document said previously. That's not in this one, but that was there in the other one, which means that we would have a big hit in the last years, which would be in about 2044, and we would be hijacking the district viability and
No, you're not. You're not hijacking.
That's not what other experts
Well,
say.
are we hijacking?
Ms. Medina, I want to make sure I understand your questions. First off, interest rates. You asked about our interest rates very high. So right now, the interest rate on the 30-year mortgage, if you go in there, it's roughly 6.75 to 7%. That's the published rate on a 30-year taxable mortgage that a lot of people here would borrow at. Okay. These numbers right now, we estimate the borrowing cost, as Dr. Kaneen said here, borrowing cost for this financing in totality be roughly in the 4.25 to 4.5 range. Okay, so
which is high for a bond.
A significant decrease from the taxable rate, right? Which in local units of government, like the school district, can borrow at that rate because the government provides that opportunity. Okay. In addition, okay, related to borrowing for whether or not you have all the projects lined up, the good thing about this environment is if you issued the fixed rate bonds, you would lock in that 4.25 interest rate. And then while you're waiting for the projects to be built and be completed, short-term interest rates right now in the Treasury market are near 4.75%. So that will allow you to not have any negative drag, negative carry on the proceeds when they're waiting to be spent on the project. And as a matter of fact, you'll have more money from that $71 million to deploy into the projects because of the good nature of the reinvestment rates right now. That's the good thing about the increase of interest rates, right? And the whole idea is, the final comparison I'll say is, the 4.25 borrowing rate, that you compare that to your inflation cost for the projects, right? If you can borrow at a rate that's at or below the inflationary factor, the economy of scale factor, then net, it ends up being a better transaction for the local community. That's the way that works from a pure mathematical standpoint.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Right. Right. Yeah, the other thing to say about the bond structure here, okay, there are two components to the bond issue. One is the type of bond that you already have used numerous times at the district, and you can only borrow with a 20-year maturity there. And so you have about 5 years around the end of your existing debt service where you can fill in and keep levying for the $6 million. That's why it's structured that way. So as Dr. Kaneen said, there's no impact on the taxpayer, right? That was an important component. So that was the reason we did that. Again, that rate, okay, is still in the 4.25 range, right? So we took that into account. The other set of bonds that are going to be paid back with evidence-based funding dollars, right? Those begin amortizing right away, so that we don't just defer principal to the end on everything. Okay.
I got a question. So, because of this bank liquidation, if the Fed pivots on the 21st, it's going to say what's it going to do. If it pivots and let's say the interest rate comes down in 2 years to an inflation rate comes down to its normal 2%, will we be able to refinance these 71 million and regain some?
The short answer is yes.
Okay.
And there's a bullet point in the presentation here, the first page, which says that as you have done in the past, we preserve and put in a call option, meaning a refunding option, into the bond issue.
Yes, so you get a protection on that.
I think that's how we got those 77 million from another
Okay,
bond we
so
had issued.
again, and I see a question, I'll get to it in a second. The question you have to ask is there $71 million in improvements that the school district needs? And if the answer is yes, then what we are saying is this is a reasonable plan to get it done so students can benefit from those improvements immediately. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, thank you so much. Actually, I was hoping Todd would take a walk down memory lane with me back to 2017 when we first got our $70 million to start the master facilities plan. I don't know if you remember, but you were there. Todd Dreyfall was our CFO at the time. And our plan to get the money, the $70 million, if the board remembers, involved months and months of discussion and planning. So we had the planning and the discussion on the financial side through the financial committee, through the larger board meetings, and then also through meetings with the public where they were asked, students, teachers, parents, community members, were asked to prioritize the projects that they wanted us to spend the money on. And that $70 million actually, if memory serves, only came from a bond purchase of $28 million. And the rest of the money came from district savings and refinancing of bonds that we had at the time. Right. And that's how we got that $70 million. There was never a $70 million bond of outright just bond purchase. We were very creative and thoughtful about how to come up with that $70 million. At that time, we had a really solid plan attached to the spending. We had meetings with the community where we had all these little red dots and the green dots and the yellow dots, and we put them on all the things so we could prioritize these projects. And then also, while we were going through this entire process, not only did we have Todd, you were there, I believe we had from Mesero, the Mesero folks were there, we had Chapman and Cutler, I believe, but we also had Ehlers. And Ehlers was there as a consultant to solely look out for the financial best interest of the district. So it wasn't just a product being put before us and a consultant saying, hey, this is a great idea. We had someone literally sitting on our side to say, hey, this is in the district's best interest or not to go ahead with this plan, to purchase bonds, to refinance bonds, to use the savings you have, to do the repairs and the refurbishments that we needed to do. Okay, so that's where I'm coming from in 2017. And now looking at this, because these are they are tax exempt bonds, correct? Mm-hmm. There needs to be an actual plan attached to this spending. So we need something from Mesero or Perkins & Will. We need to be able to account, because this is federal money we're dealing with, that we have a plan for spending it. What projects are attached to the $71 million you're telling us to get? You're saying if we, still talking. I know you're doing that thing. I'm still talking. So
I'm just watching.
Okay, because it's still me. Okay, thanks.
I'm here.
So I got it, thanks. So we've got that law that we need to have these plans attached. And so that's something that concerns me as a board member is we've not seen the planning or the prioritization of any kind of plans that would say, hey, here's what we're doing with the $71 million you're proposing, or also, hey, we even need $71 million. I'm sure we do. But that plan has to be presented, not just to us, but to the community as well, so we can get some feedback on this and see, if maybe priorities have changed in the past few years about what people want based on the improvements they've already seen us do in the past few years. But I do have some questions. Wow. I'm wondering how far out this debt will go. How will this affect our future borrowing capacity? I also want to know what this is going to do to our credit score and what is this going to do to our bond rating. Those are my 4 questions, if we could get those answered.
Okay, let me answer your first point. And the reason I looked on the side is I saw LT coming up here, because he was going to talk to you about the projects. There's 2 components of what we're talking about here, and I wanted to look at everyone, so. There are 2 components. One is generating the funds. The other is spending the funds. What I am addressing right now is generating the 71 million. And why is that? With my background, I'm telling you, it is a favorable time in comparison with what may happen. This locking in of the 4.25, this utilization of generating the money in that specific time period, this is a very favorable time to do it. Now the second component is how you, not me, not Dr. You will prioritize and spend this money. And I'm glad you said you see that there is a definite need for this amount of money to improve your school. With you having this money in the bank, which Todd told us will not cost you because it will be a wash while it's sitting in the bank, it will give you the opportunity to seize the moment when these projects become very financially advantageous to you to do it. Nowhere in my presentation am I talking about, okay, A, B, and C. That's your decision for the projects. The decision that you will make soon is having the money for you to be able to complete those projects.
Let me say this, Ms. Grant. This evening, we're not bringing anything to you all for approval. Now, we have some ideas as to how and what we need, but we're not doing any of that this evening. I brought them back for clarification and to make sure that you understood and ask any additional questions that you may have. But we will be getting with you, the board, the community, as to next steps of those items that we want to fixed moving forward. None of that.
So are you saying that we'll do all the focus groups and the outreach and the discussions before we even get the 71 million?
We'll do a small group. Yes, absolutely.
A small group? Mm-hmm. So when we did this in 2017, this process
was 2017.
Right, and it was the right thing to do to engage as many people as possible.
We're still going to do that.
But you said a small group. What does that mean?
I just want you to know tonight, we're not bringing and asking you.
I know, but I don't see value in proceeding further unless we can say, hey, here's a list of projects. This justifies putting this district in debt for the next however many years to get this $71 million.
Understood.
I want to have these questions answered about how far this debt's going to go out and all these other things before we even move forward. What's the point of discussing if we have no plan?
Okay, Rodney has a question.
And with all due respect, I apologize to you all. Ms. Grant, I understand your point and you can make your point, but I don't understand the argument. It's been explained. If I'm understanding, and I'm not a financial guru, if I'm going to go look for a house with the wife, I would probably want to get financing first. Is that what I'm hearing you guys saying, pretty much? Just I want to go and see how much money I have, I want to get the finances.
Pre-qualified for your mortgage.
Right, so I want to go I'm saying, wife, we're going to go get another house. But my credit score is 400 and I can't even get a loan, but I'm looking for houses that I'm going to. So what you're telling us, if I understand, is the financial market is prime and proper for and good, advantageous for us now to take advantage of this financial resource. If we don't take advantage of that financial resource now, then the rates may go up and it may not be advantageous in the future. But what we choose to do with it is a whole nother conversation.
That's correct.
What type of house I choose to buy, regardless of what I get financed for, is a whole nother conversation. As a matter of fact, I can't have a conversation about getting the house until I know how much money I'm going to have.
That's what tonight is about.
Thank you, sir.
Just generating the dollars.
Okay.
Thank you.
The term 20 years.
You can move on.
20 years.
We are still under our debt limit of 6.9% of our EAV. And our EAV has risen, and we have more debt capacity under that 6.9%, which is the state law on how much indebtedness a district can have. Correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Thanks. I'll go to them.
And I just want to make one more comment about the structure. We, in 2017, right, you did bonds with a 20-year final maturity also.
Very good.
Right.
Thank you.
Right, the 28 million in bonds.
That's correct, yes.
Thank you, which we're still paying.
Yes.
Right, okay. So the 71 million, my second question, how will this affect our future borrowing capacity?
Like I said, we have 6.9% of our EAV, and I could calculate that, and I can get back to you on how much still bonding capacity we would have.
Okay, so we'll find that out later.
Yes.
Okay. And then what will this do to our bond rating?
Your financial condition is very solid right now. I would fully expect a reaffirmation of the bond rating right now.
And we will appear before S&P and Moody's, and we will share our rating with you, and they're anticipating this. I'm not saying it will harm you at all.
Will this bring our bond rating down? Will this bring our bond rating down?
No, it's not going to bring your bond rating down at all. I assure you of that.
The biggest issue is if we have a large amount to pay from these bonds towards the end of it, we have no choice but to raise taxes significantly in order to pay it back. That's a problem, because it's not something we're going to be able to pay back.
Do you want the money in 23 or do you want the money in 43? Do you want the improvements in 23 or do you want them in 43? You make the choice.
Thank you.
And I think I would suggest that 23 would be a better time to utilize this.
But it's not an either or. It's not we do everything 2023 or we wait for 20 years. That's not the case.
No, but the question of generating the revenues is an either or. You say, yes, I want the 71 million in the bank to give you the power to make those decisions, or no, I don't. And if you say, no, you don't, we have to come up with a new plan. But if the board says, yes, I want the 71 million, then we have it in what we feel is a financially favorable position for the board.
Or we could just contribute $500 or $5 million of our savings each year. I mean,
yeah, you could, and that's where my chart
right. I mean, when you presented in February, part of the payback of this was supposed to come from evidence-based funding, and that's actually relatively new funding for schools in low-income, property tax districts, right? It was just signed into law in 2017.
Just a different name for state aid.
What if it ends?
Evidence-based funding is a new name for state aid.
Right, but it's a special allotment that was signed into law. What if that goes away?
No, evidence-based funding is general state aid that can be used for any purpose the district says. It is not a categorical amount of money.
It is extra money given to districts that have lower tax bases to provide equity to the students so that we have the resources we need. That's what I'm saying.
It's not
categorical.
It's based on EAP. It's based on the district's ability, and we don't need to argue.
I'm not arguing, but if that funding ends, there goes part of your plan to pay off this debt.
Yeah.
I don't think
move further, sir. You can go on. You're here to explain tonight, to clarify if you could continue things.
Yes, and again, you have spent money on your buildings. They are better because of the money you've spent on your buildings. I firmly endorse this concept. I like the concept of getting your mortgage pre-approved and having the money spent. If you don't spend it next year, it's a break even. You still have it. And I'm not sure, you asked a question about the banks, what's going to happen in our financial climate. I don't have a crystal ball for that, but I do say you're locking it in this time.
I just know when the interest rates, what do you call them, the current interest rates, the retail interest rates are like this. It is best to do bonds and treasuries. So save for time and also for bonds as well.
Yeah, my final statement on this isn't a reckless plan at all.
Thank you.
This is a conservative plan. We could have gone out and with bonding capacity, we could have generated much more than 71 million if we wanted to. But we had to keep to our two tenets. Nothing is going to hurt our program and no taxpayer amount. Thanks on that. Last two, very quickly, and I apologize that I talked so long. The audit will be coming to us next month. We've been dealing with our auditors. We had the rug pulled out on us in July from the old auditing firm. We had to go to a new auditing firm in December. They're pursuing it. We are in constant communication with the state, telling them where we are at. And Mr. Moody is on the phone to the auditors every day saying, let's get it to you. You need to have your audit done. The last thing is the budget. And we're starting on 2024's budget now. The goal of the superintendent is openness and transparency on the budget. You will have a preliminary budget in May for you to start looking at it. Not a tentative budget in September or in August. You will have preliminary numbers that we will generate in May, and I have a feeling we'll have a nice argument over some of those numbers.
Will we have even a CFO by that time? Who knows? Who knows?
We are going to give you projections for the end of June 30th, where we are going to end up in June 30th, and then start the budgetary process in an earlier fashion so that you can ask me a lot of questions.
Okay, so you're here for the long term then, Dr. Kameen?
No, thank you. All right, Mr. Moody, come on.
Okay, we've shared a lot of information tonight, but we do have a few items that we're asking for you to take action on. Number one, the bill list is included in your packet for your review and approval. Number two, in order to make sure our schools are as safe as we can possibly make them, we did a solicitation last month to purchase X-ray scanner machines. And actually, I think I have a picture here of the type of equipment that we're trying to purchase.
That's crazy.
These machines would allow us to scan packages as they come into the building and make sure there's nothing in the package that would be dangerous or could be used to cause danger in the school. So during the solicitation, one of the things we discovered is that X-ray scanner machine, there is no one size fits all. And so we realized that the machines we're looking at, we really need to have a variety of machines. And so here's an example. We need the large machines, but we also need the smaller machines that are designed to focus on smaller backpacks and book bags and such. So what we're asking tonight is to reject the bids that we received on the one machine and allow us to rebid this solicitation so we can get a variety of machines. And so we are asking for your approval to do that. The last item I want to bring to your attention is a resolution. We have an opportunity to participate in the federal surplus property program. And what's exciting about that is that TSA, when they take machines out of the airports, some of those machines go into this program, and we could potentially benefit from acquiring those machines. And so the new machines are approximately $30,000 each. we're trying to buy 5 of them, but we could actually use twice that many. So if we're able to get your approval on this resolution, it will allow us to participate in the surplus program and perhaps be able to acquire additional machines. So just to summarize, these are the items we are asking for you to take action on tonight. The bill list, the approval, the rejection and rebid of the X-ray scanners, and approval to participate in the federal surplus property program. So if there are any questions, we can take those now.
Ms. Medina?
As TSA has huge lines in the airports and it takes hours to get in, are we looking at fast machines to go through? Because otherwise, how are the students even going to get into the school with these machines? They're incredibly slow. How many machines are you looking at getting for each one of the schools?
Well, we're going to evaluate the machines before we take them. If the machines aren't going to meet our needs, then we won't take them. Anybody else?
I just think that these machines implicate criminalization, and I think our money needs to be spent on much better, on more security and more personnel to help with the district versus these machines.
Amanda?
Thank you. Just kind of to add on, I'm really conflicted about this. Of course, I want the safest environment possible for our students, but I wonder what effect would this have on the culture of the school to have your entrance to school in the morning be this process. I mean, bags are already checked, they're already going through metal detectors. I just think it's worth a discussion, and then also I think it would be worth it to definitely get feedback from parents and students and teachers and see what kind of effect this would have on the mental health of our students coming into the building every day. That's all.
Yes, Friday.
Mr. Moody, thank you. Yeah, I'm kind of confused. I didn't hear you say anything pretty much primarily about students, but you said packages coming into the district. And we live in a world right now where people will send and mail some kind of crazy stuff. You know, on the one hand, we sit and we talk about illegal contraband and things getting into the schools, and if I'm not mistaken, the X-ray machines would be able to help the security to deter those things from getting into the school. So here's the doublespeak that we send out to the community that's very confusing. On one hand, you want more security and you want a safe environment for our children. So the administration brings us an idea and then we say, well, no, we don't want that. Well, I don't know what you want in 2023 because this is the technology that's used to keep every situation in any building you go into safe. And since we're educating children to go out into the world, we can provide them mental services and things to help them to understand that every time you go into a court building or get on an airplane, you're going to be trained from high school to be prepared to go through these things because that's where you're going. So we can either prepare them now for the future and properly educate them, or we can sit here and play politics about we want secure and safe schools, but then we don't want our children to be. How would they go through metal detectors now? Their bags are searched now. We have armed police in our schools now, to keep staff and children safe. So it's a no-brainer when the administration comes up with more ways to assist in the process of keeping our students safe. No, we don't want that. You guys don't pretty much want too much of anything, and I'm confused. I'm really confused because in the secure world that we live in, I'm going to be getting on a plane in a couple of days, and I will, and my son will go through the same machine. And every student, regardless of their sensibilities or mental state, will not get on a plane without going through those. So if we have to provide that in the schools to make them safer, I think it's a plus, and it's a teachable moment. Thank you, Mr. Moody.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Taylor.
Could we do public comment before Mr. Taylor goes?
No, we're going to finish
I'd like to make a...
Thank you. Go on, Mr. Taylor.
Good evening, President Patterson, Vice President Kelly, Board of Education, Superintendent. Tonight we have 2 presentations for you. The purpose will come up and do a project update, overview of the PMSA student visit, security project for the exterior portions of our buildings, health and life safety update, and Gilbane will come up and do an ACM action item and also talk about the punch list related to the existing projects to get those complete. And also to highlight Dose Riviera, which is a student that worked for Gilbane and Perkins and Will last year and the year before. She's over at IIT right now, and Michelle McClendon will speak to that in a few minutes. I'd like to bring Perkins and Will up this time.
Thank you, LT. All right, once again, my name is Jessica Wagner, and I'm an architect with Perkins & Will. And so we're going to talk about a few different things today. We did a design review at PMSA. We'll talk about that briefly, as well as ComEd, giving an update on ComEd incentives. Then we'll talk about the access control and security cameras project. And finally, we'll give you an update on the HLS Health and Life Safety Survey items. So, about a month ago, two of us architects from Perkins & Will, Christopher Pinnock and myself, as well as an engineer from Alara, Scott Lempole, we visited a class, an engineering class at PMSA. This class is currently working on 3 different engineering projects for the entire semester. We talked with them, they shared us the research that they've done, as well as the analysis and their current designs. And we took a look at all of their designs. We offered some recommendations, we gave some advice, and we really had a really nice back and forth with the students and us design professionals. And I hope that the students found value in it. I know that we did, and we look forward to coming back in about a month to see the completed design. I'll turn it to Carl.
Good evening, Board. Carl Germain, Perkins & Will. We were asked to give just a brief overview about the incentives that the district has received from ComEd related to the HVAC lighting and other facility master plan projects. So I'll cover each facility really quickly. At PMSA, again, the scope was a little bit more limited. However, there were some exterior lighting incentives received, and that was in 2021. Again, there should be no surprise that the amount of incentives there were fairly minimal compared to the other 2 facilities. At West, kind of jump to the other side of the screen here, for the 2021-2022 scope of work, approximately $3,500 was received in ComEd incentives through their custom incentive program, and this is related to the HVAC renovations. For the upcoming summer's worth of work, we anticipate a similar amount to be received. As we jump over to East, you'll notice that the West numbers are quite a bit lower, and that's because of the way the custom incentive program is structured, with lighting not being a component to the Proviso West renovations. That had a pretty significant effect on the amount of incentives that ComEd determined the district would receive. So then jumping to the center column, at East again through the custom incentive program related to the HVAC and lighting renovations. And for the 2021-2022 scope of work, the district received just under $45,000 from ComEd, and it is estimated for the upcoming 2 summers worth of work that an additional $20,000 will be provided to the district from ComEd. All in, this totals just a little bit more than $74,000 of ComEd incentives. Any questions on that? Okay. Then I'm going to turn back over to Jessica.
Thank you very much. All right, so I'm going to talk about the security projects. We have the phase 2 of access control as well as the security cameras. So starting off with the schedule, right now we are nearing the end of the design of phase 2 of access control, and we anticipate turning those documents over to Gilbane for bidding in about a week and a half. The schedule for the security cameras follows that of the access control by about a month. We are currently sort of closer to the beginning of the design process, and we anticipate turning those documents over to Gilbane for bidding in May.
I'm sorry, as far as access control is concerned, are you talking about locked doors, or are you talking about cameras that go with the doors?
Give me 1 second on the next slide, and I'll talk about the scope, and then if you have any questions after that, then you can ask that. So the access control project is actually in 2 phases. Right now, the first phase is under construction, the second phase is under design. So for this project, at all 3 schools, we've looked at all of the exterior doors that have card readers and doors that might have card readers, as well as interior doors that have card readers as well. We are performing a rough-in and wiring of the security devices, and this is separate from the camera project. Access control does not include cameras. The security camera project is separate, which I will get to in a few slides. So for this access control project, we are also installing door monitoring contacts, as well as voice radio transmitter systems and lockdown pull stations at all 3 schools. And as you can tell from both the red dots and the gray dots, these are all of the doors that are in scope in both the first and the second phases at West. And for East, you can tell the doors that were covered as well. For PMSA, I do not have a plan because for the second phase of work at PMSA, we've already covered all the doors in the first phase of work. So for any questions so far on the access control project? So for the security camera project, we are looking at all of the existing right now, as well as potential locations for new cameras. So we'll be upgrading all of the existing cameras, and this is at all 3 schools. We'll be installing a new back-end system. New service anticipated this work a few projects ago. So for the parking lot work that we've done at the schools previously, anticipating a security camera upgrade, we did already install some infrastructure for this security camera work. And then you can see an image right there of the infrastructure that's currently, that was previously installed that will be used. Any questions on security camera or access control? Ms. Medina, did I answer your question? Oh, thank you.
Okay, and the last item we're going to cover, it's been a little while since we've given you an update on the HLS study that was performed last for the district. So as we talk about HLS, it's kind of helpful to do a little refresh of the 3 classifications of priority codes. There's urgent, required, and recommended. Urgent, most bluntly, are the bare minimum requirements to maintain an operating facility. These are items that need to be corrected within 1 year. They often are related to path of egress, very specific life safety requirements. For required, they are items that are identified as being having a specific rule in the code that needs to be addressed. Again, these typically do fall under HLS requirements, but they are not quite elevated to the level of urgent. As such, these items are required to be corrected within 5 years. And then the lowest level of urgency is recommended. This is where a whole host of items falls, typically related to energy conservation, related to accessibility, aesthetic items would fall under recommended. So just to do a quick review of all the facilities at PMSA, there's not a whole lot to report here. These items have all been completed for a couple of years. There are currently no outstanding items on the HLS report. For Proviso West, all the urgent items have been completed in the Facility Master Plan Sequence 1 and 2. 204 of the required items have been completed. There is 1 outstanding item, and this is an item that's currently in process. There's a 2-year item to fix the existing concrete sunshades at the academic wing buildings B, C, and D. That will be completed in this upcoming summer. And I'll mention this as well with East. After the completion of this work, we will file the necessary documents with the Illinois School Board of Education, so that way the district can recognize that these items were completed. There are still a large number of recommended items. Again, these are things that, again, accessibility, aesthetic, energy efficiency. I'll touch a little bit more on those after discussing East. Just to give you a couple of photos to remind you some of the items that were on the Health and Life Safety Report for West. There was some facade repair that was completed on buildings E as well as A. There were auto shop grease separator was installed. Doors and path of egress, doors were replaced and paths of egress were maintained. At East, there were 169 urgent items. Again, these have all been completed in previous phases of the facility master plan. There are 283 required items completed. There are 27 in progress required items. These are items largely due that are outstanding related to the multi-phased HVAC and electrical system renovations. So at the completion of the 2024 scope of work, these items will be addressed. Again, similar to West, we will go ahead then and confirm that they were completed and file the necessary paperwork with the Illinois School Board of Education. So the recommended items that you can see here and at West, as we're kind of approaching the end of this first round of facility master plan, can form the basis for the upcoming scope of work for any projects the district may want to pursue. And we're currently in the process of reviewing and evaluating those to see what might be appropriate to be included in any future projects the district would like to complete. Similar to West, just to give you a little reminder of some of the items that were addressed. Again, doors, path of egress, the mechanical electrical system replacement accounted for a large balance of the HLS items, and then some other miscellaneous items like stairs and railing repairs were completed. At that point, any questions on the HLS or any of the other topics we discussed?
Madam President, if it pleases the board, can we get an itemized list for each school and maybe at the next meeting, or maybe Sam can get it through the committee so we'll know specifically what the recommended items are once you guys figure out which ones we're going to do?
Yep, I can do that. And that's been filed with the Iowa system for the Illinois School Board of Education. That's very easy to do.
If we could get a map, I've asked for this several times. What's been accomplished, like with a graph, so we can see it. When we get individualized pictures, or when I get, I want to fund a QS25 from the Master Facilities Plan, we have no idea what that is. That means something to you, it means nothing to us.
Sure. Yeah, along with the 10-year health and life safety survey, a plan with each item identified on the plan.
Well, if we could see the plan, so we see where we are with the Master's Facility Plan. It hasn't been presented to the board in years. So it's really hard to follow up or to even understand where we're going.
Yep, we can provide that information.
That'd be great. I know Gilbane does it for other districts because I've been going to other districts meetings, and I know that Gilbane does it, and it's been very effective. Always show the plan, this is what we completed, this is where we're going, this is what we need to do, and your company does it for other districts. It would be really helpful if it started happening for us as well. Thanks.
Just because Carl will help. We do have our FMP meeting every month. We do have our Board of Education facility meeting. To be fair to the process, we do present that stuff.
Every month.
We have shown a roadmap of what jobs have been completed with the district. So please come to those meetings, give us 5 or 10 minutes. You can join on Teams. I'll be more than happy to sit down with you if you want to send the superintendent an email or a text message and just show the projects, because we do showcase them at those meetings every month.
At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, right?
No, so the FMP meeting is 3:45 to roughly 6:45, and then the Board of Education committee meeting starts at 5:30 in the evening and goes to about 7. At this time, I'd like to bring up Gilbane.
All right, good evening. Tom Weeks with Project Manager with Gilbane Building Company. Give you a quick update on some of the construction side items. First item is a punch list update on the 2021 project punch list, D3 with the controls. We completed all the troubleshooting that were being encountered relative to graphics and controls. We're in the process right now of getting the training scheduled with the district's maintenance group. Proviso East fencing, Abbey paving, they are going to be back out sometime late spring, early summer to address the grading issues that are being encountered underneath the fencing along the north side of the north parking lot here at Proviso East. The ponding here at Proviso East parking lot, Abbey is in the process right now of developing, proposing solutions to remedy those items. My hope is that within the next month or so, we'll have those solutions available to review and possibly move forward on. On the 2022 projects, doors here at East, they were installed around President's Day. The only thing that's not occurred yet is the actual cores that go in those doors. I think there's approximately 63, 64 doors that were installed. The cores are not going to be delivered until sometime in April. Once those are received, they will be installed. The generator here, we're looking at over spring break next week basically to get the concrete generator pad poured. And then they're going to actually set the generator the later part of spring break. I will say that's not including the termination and actually firing up the unit. It's literally just getting the generator itself set in place. Termination would happen sometime over the summer. And then the last item on here is the curbs at West, where we've got some out of alignment curb issues. That contractor is planning on being out next week at spring break to take a look at some remedies. Again, that's going to be weather permitting, so let's hope we get some nice 50-degree weather next week, because that'll be very helpful in them being able to get out and take care of that.
Good evening, I am Shona Clinton with Gilbane. I will provide an update on bidding. We bid abatement and final cleaning March 2nd. Scope review meetings took place on March 3rd, and we are here to present an RTA for the abatement only. We anticipate putting the access controls phase 2 documents out to bid March 24th. Our bid due date is TBD, but we anticipate bringing that to the board at the May 9th board meeting for approval. The security camera proposed project, those bid documents, we expect them in May of this year. We will finalize the bid due date upon receipt of the drawings from Perkins & Will, and we anticipate bringing that to the board for approval in June or July of this year. With respect to the bids that were provided earlier this month, we received bids for final cleaning over at Proviso East High School for the summer. And we also received bids for final cleaning over at Proviso West High School. At this time, we are not providing a recommendation to award the cleaning, as the district is reviewing with the facilities department the option for internal staff to do that. If we need to supplement at a later time, we will bring forth that recommendation. We are recommending approval of the bids for abatement at both East and West. For Proviso East for the abatement work for 2023 and for 2024. We are recommending that CEC Environmental be provided with the bid. They submitted a bid of $1,115,885. Our estimate for this work was $1,177,190. We are therefore recommending CEC Environmental at Proviso East. For Proviso West, we received 2 proposals. We are recommending again CEC Environmental for $431,250. Our estimate for this work was $571,460. Additional procurement or update on pre-purchased equipment rather. We pre-purchased the unit ventilators for Proviso West in anticipation of some of the supply chain issues that we have encountered. We anticipate their delivery the 2nd or 3rd week of June, or pardon me, the 3rd or 4th week of June, on time for installation the 1st week of July for the upgrades, mechanical upgrades at Proviso West. Also want to provide an update on construction expenditures to date.
All right, so the spreadsheet here that's in front of you identifies basically all the hard construction costs that have been contracted out, starting from 2020 through this past summer, 2022. We're showing that we have a total of a little over $83.8 million that have been contracted to the trade contractors. If we work our way over to the right, you'll see a line item that says the final contract value. So at present, based on contracts that have been closed and pending closing of contracts, we're looking at an estimated final contract value of the 2020 through 2022 work, coming in around $83.1 million. And what that's really showing us now is that we are encountering basically a net savings of approximately $650,000 to the district through these last 3 years of construction projects here at Proviso. We've got a quick graphic here for just showing the cash flow projections. I know Perkinsville had indicated the concrete sunshades. I mentioned the generator here. So on the left-hand side for the 2022 work, which was part of phase 1, sequence 3, you'll see that we have kind of a gap in there. Last billing cycle is like in February, and then it starts pulling back up in June. And what that is, again, is that work that's still not completed, that is slated to be completed this coming summer. On the right-hand side, we're looking at what the projected cash flow is for the contracts that were recently awarded back in January, as well as the ACM, which is part of that recommendation today. And again, you can see it's broken out over 2 summers, mostly for here at Proviso East, and it shows what those expenditures are going to look like. And the last item on here, allowance update. So you saw the net savings that I referenced previously, about $650,000. A good chunk of that net savings is where we come in with the allowance expenditures on each project. On the left-hand side, you can see what has been returned to date. So these are for contracts that have been closed. We've returned $937,000 in allowance expenditures back to the district. The item on the right-hand side that shows our potential amount, so that's basically allowances that are still technically open right now. But as we close out those contracts, our anticipation is that we're going to be looking at returning to the district $534,000. So we're showing net savings on the allowance side of around $1.4 million starting from 2020 through this past summer.
All right, and our last item for everyone in the audience and watching online, I am encouraging, if you have a student that is 16 or older that attends any of the Proviso Township high schools, to have them apply for Gilbane's internship program. We are looking for 2 students, one that will work at Proviso East, one that will work at Proviso West. However, they can come from any of the 3 schools in the township. The application is due April 1st. To date, I have 0 applications for this opportunity. So I am really asking if any of our educators in the audience, our staff, can please spread the word that April 1st is the deadline to submit an application for the internship program this summer. Competitive pay, we pay $15 an hour, 40 hours a week, in addition to engagement with other college interns that will be part of our program, visiting other job sites, participating with some of our subcontractors, visiting their warehouses and manufacturing facilities, etc. The internship for Proviso students will start on June 19th, shortly after the last day of school, and it will end on August 11th. We are also proposing career shadow days for students at Proviso. The information has been shared with the superintendent's office. Students will be selected accordingly. We look forward to more information for those shadow days. Being able to come to Gilbane's corporate office downtown Chicago for a hands-on day of learning with the professionals in our Chicago office. We are also looking to do a safety stand-down with the students at all 3 campuses during Construction Safety Week, which is an international item sponsored by OSHA, but we have proposed rather a safety stand down and information session at all 3 campuses the first week of May. We are looking to finalize those details with the superintendent's office as well. We have also asked to participate in upcoming college days or college fairs on the campus. As soon as we receive that information, our participation will be solidified. Last but not least, we are excited that we are able to continue our relationship with the students of Proviso even after they graduate. On March 2nd, myself and several Gilbane employees were able to visit IIT their chapter of the American Society of Civil Engineers, at the request of Dulce Rivera, a graduate of Proviso Math and Science Academy, who interned with Gilbane in 2021 and Perkins and Will in 2022. She is an active member of her community, of her college community, and we are excited to continue our partnership with her and her friends over in college and provide them more information about careers in construction, engineering, and architecture. That ends my report. Oh, pardon me. Our action item, we are looking to award work for the bid package 02P, abatement work for Proviso East High School. This is for asbestos-containing material removal and proper disposal. Our estimate was $1,177,190. We opened bids on March 2nd. We scoped bidders on March 3rd, and we are again recommending CEC Environmental be provided with this contract for $1,115,885. This is for Proviso East. At Proviso West for the ACM removal and disposal, we had a design estimate of $571,460 for abatement package 02Q. The bid opening was on March 2nd. Bidders were scoped on March 3rd. We are recommending CEC Environmental be awarded the package for $431,250. That ends my report. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dowell.
Good evening, Board, Superintendent. My report will be brief. As it relates to vacancies, we have the same vacancies as we did last month in core classes. So one English vacancy, one PE vacancy, one SPED vacancy at West. I also want to highlight, as we're gearing up for recruitment for next year, we are going to job fairs. I went to a UIC job fair on March 2nd, participated in a virtual job fair on March 7th. This Thursday, I will be attending a job fair for National Louis University. These are all these are all teacher fairs, so this is recruitment of certified staff. And also, this is all grant funded, and we anticipate some grant funded recruitment trips. So there's a recruitment trip from March 20th to March 24th, mainly of southern states, Jackson State, University of Southern Mississippi, and then there's another career fair that would span from March 30th to April 5th, and this would be in the Texas area. And again, these are all grant funded. We have a $50,000 recruitment grant. My action item for tonight is to approve the personnel report. Any questions? Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Swanson?
Evening, Board, Superintendent.
Good evening.
Just want to do a quick review of the technology projects. As you can see, a large amount of it completed in the past 10 months that we've been implementing the React model. We're nearing the end of the one-year model, which we will then re-up and just go back through it again and continue our improvement for the district and the technology. Some of the major projects have been server consolidation across the district and overall just reaching compliance standards to ensure we can provide the best educational services for our students. Off of that, another large project is the Ring Central implementation to phase out our legacy phone system. Phone deployment is in process at Proviso East, so there is scheduled training on the 16th and then a scheduled switchover date on the 27th. So the switchover date will be after hours around midnight, and there will be no service disruption. So it'll be as if when you call in, it'll be a newer auto attendant, but everyone will go to where they need to go, and there'll be no system downtime. I've also included Ring Central, which is one of the highest rated providers at a 99.999% uptime, so there's no more outages at all, and we'll have continuous communication across the district. Proviso West is the next school we're moving on to. The phone survey is in process, and the training and reporting date is upcoming as we work through that and switch over Proviso East. One of the one of the items is as we continued our AT&T account audit, the most recent credit is another credit of $28,133 back to our accounts. That again is that continuous cleanup of our AT&T accounts as we discontinued services that were no longer used. So we have a large credit balance in our AT&T accounts, and what that should be able to make us do is we'll be able to use that credit balance for our AT&T accounts. So by the time we use up that balance, we'll be off of AT&T for landlines. So once we completely switch off of Ring Central, there will be no more landline AT&T bills. It'll just be a very small amount of bills for them per month. One of the other action items for tonight is the AT&T switched Ethernet renewal, standard yearly renewal, which is a service that connects all of our districts' buildings together and ensures it acts as one unified network. It is Category 1 E-rate covered with a 90% reimbursement. Second action item for you tonight is the Scholar Summer IT Internship. I was very excited to start this last year, as that's how I got started in the technology field, and we're looking to re-up that for another second grade summer. I have on the left the students that participated in the internship last year, and we've been continually working in communication with them, and excited to open this opportunity up for another round of students. And those are my action items for tonight. Any questions?
Yeah, just a really quick question. Do you, when the students for the IT internship does each person get to do like one internship and then it opens up to a new group, or do we have?
So it'll be 4 students are selected for the summer program, is what we have done, but every student gets to go through the process of submitting a resume and participating in the interview process. So they get that experience, so that's a great opportunity for them to develop those skills.
Okay, but do we choose like a different group, or can one kid do like a whole bunch of internships?
It's one internship program for the summer, so it'll be 4 students are chosen, and they will be with us throughout the entirety of the summer to work with the department across all 3 buildings.
And then a different 4 are chosen the next year?
The following year, correct.
Right, okay, that's great. I think it's a wonderful opportunity. Thank you.
So I have a question. Isn't that work?
You guys, let me just be clear. Please be acknowledged by the chair. Been a little lenient, but go ahead, Ms. Medina.
Isn't this typically work that had been done by union workers, though? As part of the tech department?
No, this is just an internship program.
Correct.
All right, but is the work that the interns are going to do?
No, it is just an internship program. Thank you, Mr. Swanson. That concludes our presentation.
At this time, the Board of Education open the floor for citizen comments. The board will receive public comments from any individual present this evening and have submitted a request to address the board per established procedures. We believe that all participant in the meeting desires the best outcome for our students, families, and communities. As a reminder, this meeting is being live streamed and will also be archived and available on the district website. This is a business meeting of the Board of Education. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Once I ask that you stop talking, ask if you would please adhere to the request. Marcelo Soto. Nicole O'Connor. Jayla Bash.
Hello? Okay. Good evening, parents, students, and teachers of Proviso Township. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Tonight I wanted to address my brave, passionate, and exhausted colleagues. For many of you, the past 2 years have been a difficult struggle. Not only do you have to contend with significant lack of resources for your students and classes, you are also encountering harassment or retaliation on an almost daily basis from building and district administrators. Don't give up. Your students see your strength. They take comfort in knowing you are there to advocate for them. Until I'm there in person to fight alongside of you, though, I wanted to pass along information about some government agencies that are now familiar with Proviso Township. Your union reps have knowledge of the following agencies and are available to assist you with filing. For harassment, retaliation, and discrimination, there are 3 government entities that you are able to connect with: the EEOC, the Illinois Department of Human Services, and the Office for Civil Rights, Department of Education. For issues regarding unsafe working conditions, weapons being brought in, lack of access, adults coming into the building, and ADA violations, contact the United States Department of Labor, OSHA Division. For continuing and ongoing special education and bilingual violations that are impacting your students on a daily basis, you may still contact ISB to file a complaint. As teachers, we do not tolerate bullying or unsafe conditions for our students. We should have the same expectations for our employers. For many of us, Proviso is not a stepping stone to bigger paychecks or a cushy Illinois pension. Proviso is family. Proviso is home to some of the fiercest and most innovative educators I've ever had the privilege of knowing. It is with this in mind that I beg you to stay in this fight. April 4th is right around the corner, and as Shakespeare reminds us, the truth will out. On a last note, please keep in your thoughts the students of Proviso West, who are experiencing significantly huge levels of distress as brutal physical altercations are occurring daily, like today, unchecked by administrators who walk by and say it's the end of the school day, we can do nothing about it. Our students are floundering and need our help. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Carissa Gillespie. This is Diane Medina. Lee Torres. Amari. Danielle English. Michael Hunt. Eric Williams. Steve Codwell. Mike Ocklong. Dr. Orasani. That concludes our comments.
And that is why we should be considerate of public
President. I'm sorry, Ms. Medina, that you didn't get to have a performance this evening. I'm sorry, I apologize. President's report. Let me take this opportunity to thank our hardworking student, parent, for our students that have had to endure so much in these last few years, endure things such as disappointment, chaos, discuss, but you persevered, and for that, I say thank you. I would also like to thank our teachers, teachers' aides, maintenance, custodial, administrative assistants, any and all that I failed to mention. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your service. Everyone within Proviso Township employee has an important role to play. To our leadership team, thank you. For many times, I was taught that thank you make room for more. And many times, none of you guys are thanked for what you do and what you have done. It means a lot. As you can see, Proviso is continuing to move forward. I don't want the public to be hoodwinked, bamboozled, because of civic activity that may be going on in your community right now. You have a few that will paint the picture that this is just a horrible thing. You had one person that sits on this board that went out and put in the atmosphere that we had a need for 26 teachers, which was the furthest thing from the truth. Just tell the truth, that's all I ask. We need 6 teachers, people. I'm sorry? 3. So work is being done in the district. To the special education director, let me take liberty to apologize for the attack that you received. I don't know if I'm disappointed or glad that the question has finally come out. There have been so many rumor mills and lies and distorted stories, and to stand and ask that woman, are you related to the superintendent? Knowing that this is live stream, which was an attempt to embarrass, but she held her own. I thank you for that, ma'am. You treat folk the way you want to be treated. Because if the shoe would have been on the other foot, it would have been a different story. We are moving forward in this district. We have folk that are no longer employees here that have had an opportunity to be a part of Proviso. We must understand that in order to get respect, you have to give it. I've heard words such as bullying, and folk know how to use the powerful words. But if for every finger that you have pointing out, there's always going to be one pointing back at you. We can come together. We can work as a team. Whether Dr. Henderson is here or whomever sit in that seat, somebody is not going to be pleased. So no matter what you do, how you do it, how well you do it, it's not going to be enough. But as a sitting board president, I will not sit and allow, not under my watch, folk be just disrespected for no apparent reason or because of your personal whatever. I cannot and I would not afford it to disturb my peace. All I say is we need to work together. I don't care who takes these seats. It's always that person that feels like I can do it better until you get behind this desk. I've never seen it fail. I've been coming to the board meeting since 1999. I've seen people that are running that have never come to the board meetings until recent. And that's okay. Everybody can run. Everybody just can't win. Thank you. Consent agenda. pull anything?
Yes, please.
Are you ready, Ms. Miller? She wants to pull. Yes.
I would like to pull B as in boy, F, G, K, and O.
Are there any others? Call the roll.
Yes. I'd also like to pull O.
What?
O was already pulled.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear it. F, did you pull F and G?
Yes, I did.
Oh, okay.
Well, you guys already had the discussion. She pulled them already. She pulled B, F, G, K, and O. Okay. Motion to approve the consent agenda item on the exception of B, F, G, K, and O.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Alexander?
Aye.
Ms. Medina?
Aye.
Ms. Patterson?
Aye.
Ms. Grant?
Aye.
Mr. Valtorez? Absent. Mr. Wagner?
Aye.
Ms. Kelly? Aye. Motion carried.
May I have motion to approve agenda item B?
So moved.
Second. Discussion?
Discussion.
Go ahead.
There's again another $61,000 unitemized credit card bill. And Epiphany was supposed to be included, a lot of the trainings were supposed to be included in the $650,000 that we'd already paid. And I see that we have another excessive amount of Epiphany training costs, over $70,000. It just seems like we just keep paying and paying and paying Epiphany.
Any other
Third
discussion?
grade quality work.
Any other discussion?
For high school.
Call the roll.
Mr. Alexander?
Aye.
Mrs. Kelly? Aye. Ms. Medina?
Nay.
Ms. Patterson?
Aye.
Ms. Grant?
Nay.
Mr. Valtorez? Absent. Mr. Wagner?
Aye.
Motion carried.
We have a motion to approve agenda item F.
So moved.
Second. Discussion?
Discussion.
Go ahead.
I was wondering if there was any feedback from teachers and students about this program and how much it's being used, since we've had it for a year, so I'm wondering how it's going. Have we seen any measurable results?
Madam President?
Yes.
In the board book, and I wanted to thank the administration for doing this when they presented these items. You know, for years we talked about paying for renewals and things without the data. In the board book, it definitely shows, since the initial implementation of no red ink across the district, usage reports through 3/3/23 show that 77% of ELA teachers are assigning exercises for 68% of their scholars in grades 9 through 12. So we have the information necessary to know what's being done in the district with the program and how it's being utilized. So I would say that that information is in the board book and is on the district website for public consumption.
Rebuttal. I do appreciate that, Mr. Alexander. But again, my question, what is the feedback from teachers and students? We're just wondering if they like the program. We're paying for it.
I would imagine that if 68% and 77% of them are using it, that's feedback.
About how they like it?
They're not going to use it if they don't.
I don't think so.
Okay. Call the roll.
Okay, that's 12. Mr. Alexander?
Aye.
Mrs. Kelly, aye. Ms. Medina?
Nay.
Ms. Patterson?
Aye.
Ms. Grant?
Abstain.
Mr. Valtorez is absent. Mr. Wagner?
Aye.
Motion carried.
May I have a motion to approve agenda item G?
So moved.
Second? Discussion? No discussion, call the roll.
Mr. Alexander?
Aye.
Mrs. Kelly, aye. Ms. Medina?
Abstain.
Ms. Patterson? Excuse me. Ms. Grant?
Aye.
Mr. Elder is absent. Mr. Wagner?
Aye.
Motion carried.
May I have a motion to approve consent agenda alphabet K?
So moved.
Second? Discussion? No discussion, call the roll.
Mr. Alexander?
Aye.
Mrs. Kelly, aye. Ms. Medina?
Nay.
I can't hear you.
Nay.
She said nay.
Thank you. Ms. Patterson?
Aye.
Ms. Grant?
Aye, oh, sorry, nay, no, run. I'm sorry, K. I'm sorry, that's a nay. Nay, sorry.
Okay, Mr. Elder is active. Mr. Wagner?
Aye.
May I have a
Motion carried.
I'm sorry, may I have a motion to approve consent agenda item O?
So moved.
Second? Any discussion? Call the roll.
I would like to table.
Call the roll.
Mr. Alexander?
Aye.
I'm sorry, it was for
Mrs.
discussion.
Kelly, aye.
Excuse me.
Ms. Medina?
I'd like to table the resignations
Okay.
before we vote for this item, Mr.
The discussion is
No,
over.
discussion is over. We're
This
calling the
is a
roll.
motion.
I had discussion and you just railroaded me, so, Mr. Gleason, I'd like to table the resignations for consideration. Some of these people have been here for a long time, 4 years, at least 2 of
The
them.
motion is on the floor.
I understand, so I'd like to know what we can do, because they wouldn't provide the opportunity for me to ask to table the resignations.
Ms. Medina?
Where the motion is on
I'm
the
asking
floor.
Motion.
We're
Mr.
gonna
Gleason,
continue to
before we
call the
move
roll.
forward.
Where we at? Go on.
Ms. Medina?
No, I'd like to ask Mr.
Okay, you said nay?
Yay.
You said nay.
Call next.
No, I did not
Okay,
say nay. That is
Ms.
not my
Patterson?
vote.
Aye.
That is not my vote.
Okay,
Mr.
that's fine.
Ms. Grant?
Mr. Gleason, could you please
Ms.
help me?
Grant?
The chair is not making it, they made a motion to approve the item. You made a
And
motion.
I said I needed to ask for something
The chair
and
recognized
discussion.
the motion and called the question for a vote. So your overall question is, what can you do about resignations? Really,
No, I wanted to pull them from the.
Mr. Wagner?
But I think legally, it doesn't matter whether the board approves it or not.
Aye.
It's self-executing under Illinois law. They're in writing and irrevocable. They're effective upon review. So you can't really table them. They're already provided. They're self-executing under.
Okay, motion carried.
Boyer? Kurt, you got the FOIA? Can you read it? We have FOIA. Huh? It's in the back of the book.
Okay. FOIA report, March 2023. In February 2023, Proviso Township High Schools District 209 received the following FOIA request. February 8th, 2023, Ellen P. Bruin requested copies of legal bills from August 1st, 2022 through January 31st, 2023. Information will be provided. February 14th, 2023, Robert Prost requested a copy of recent service agreement and 3 months of invoices for waste and recycling services for district. Information will be provided.
business, new business. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
No, wait, I have some new business. I was at a function and I talked to Lawrence J. Picardi Sr., who's at the Cement Masons Union, local number 502, Plasters, Area 5. And he is interested in us doing, sending some of our kids there for the trade. So I'd like for Dr. Henderson to contact him and see if we can bring this trade into our school for our kids.
That's under old business? Yeah, old business. Under old business, let me be real clear. At no time has this Board of Education ever discussed a charter school of any sort, vocational charter school. We've not talked about that at all as board members. I don't know where a plan came from in the newspaper, but we've not discussed the charter school nor anything of that nature. New business?
New business.
Oh, Amanda?
I get old business.
Oh, go.
Sorry. A couple months ago, Dr. Henderson had talked about 1,100 kids who were at the wrong grade level. I'd really like to know the outcome of that. Was that resolved? How did that work out?
It was resolved. We've cleaned all of that up.
It was resolved. So we don't have 1,100 kids at the wrong grade level.
9/11, how many approximately now, Dr. Williams?
How many?
It's 9/11 now.
Oh.
I think they got some graduates just the last few days.
So after the identification of students who were in the wrong grade level, we updated their student records in PowerSchool and our student information system. And the schools were given a list of ways to help clean up their data. For instance, there are students whose transcripts we haven't received from other school districts. So we still need to upload some of that information. There are some students who are just straight credit deficient, and therefore they are in the correct grade level now. After the first semester, we did update students who earned credits enough to go on to the next grade level. So as of today, all of our students are in their correct grade level.
Okay, so it sounds like a clerical error, sounds like, just not having all the data in that we needed?
It was a combination of all of that. Yes, so clerical errors, not having proper transcripts and information about students, students who were credit deficient, students who had some anomaly in their transcripts. So we analyzed all of that to make sure that they were in the correct grade level according to our board policy, based on their credits.
Okay, so problem solved.
We're always looking at our data. We have a weekly data integrity meeting to make sure.
But like have 1,100 kids, like a few hundred seniors aren't gonna like not graduate because their records are wrong.
Oh, no,
because that caused a lot of real concern.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
But let me be clear, there are some students who were identified as seniors may not be seniors today.
How many?
I can't give you that number, but we'll look and get back with you.
And those students, Dr. Henderson, a meeting was had with the parents, is that correct? Some parents didn't even show up, right?
That is correct. Thank you, Dr. Williams.
All right, may I get a motion
No, I
to...
have something I'd like to say.
Sure.
Thank you. There was an article in the paper, and I'm so happy that Ms. Patterson brought it up because I was approached by people who want to invest in our community, and opportunities for diverse learners. And that will be coming to the board. I find that it's exciting to have an opportunity to support diverse learners and other opportunities in the district, and I think that it should be something that the board considers and looks at very carefully. Hopefully the proposal is put together so that everybody can take a look at it and consider the opportunity for students that perhaps need to be in a smaller setting or in a different learning environment. It provides families opportunity. It's a non-for-profit opportunity, and I think that I think a charter school could provide other types of learners and students opportunity in a smaller setting. That could be beneficial to any student.
Thank you.
Madam President,
Yes.
and I want to go home.
You need to talk
but
in the
let
mic. We can't hear you.
I want the public to understand that what she just said is borderline illegal. I do not, as a board member, have the right to meet with any private entity and discuss any programs and write a newspaper article, as I'm not the spokesperson for the board, in relations to what this district is proposing or doing that has not been discussed by a quorum of this board.
No,
It is unethical. It is untrue. Not one board member up here has the right to say that this district is proposing anything that has not been discussed or approved by board members of this board.
So just by clarity.
So, excuse me, I have the floor. So what Ms. Medina just did is unethical. It is outside of our oath of office. It is not even proper. If she wanted to have that discussion, she should have done that before she went to the media and said it was going to be proposed. She can't make that call. She has to discuss it with the administration, and there's channels that we go through. But not one board member up here should be meeting with people in private saying what the board is going to do, because not one board member up here has that authority. And our oath of office, which is in your packet, that is on the website today, says that I respect the fact that I have no power as an individual board member. And yet we have board members running around to the newspapers telling the community what the board is going to do.
That is a misrepresentation of what I just said. What I
The
said
articles in the Forest
is
Park
that I
Review
hope that it
vote
comes,
for yourself.
no. What I said is that is something that
I don't
look
care what you
into,
said, Ms. McGee.
and it can and it will be proposed to the board
Okay.
for your consideration.
Well, your article read that it was the plan, you was moving forward with the plan.
No,
Can
I
I
did
get a
not.
motion to adjourn the board, a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, call the roll.
Mr. Alexander?
No.
Mrs. Kelly? Aye. Ms. Medina?
Aye.
Ms. Patterson?
Aye.
Ms. Grant?
Aye.
Mr. Wagner?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned at